Chapter 554. While the 5 great shinobi villages were actively preparing for war, and Nangongja of the Bloodcloak Pavilion was ambitious, the Akatsuki in the Rain Village naturally didn't stay idle. Uchiha Obito, who had changed his makeup, was holding Uchiha Round Fan in his hand, sitting on a huge black stone chair. Obito's 3 Tomo Sharingan and Rinnegan were casually staring at the vast space in front of him, while the huge Gedomazo appeared behind him. 7 of the 9 eyes on the Gedomazo's face were completely open at this moment, and the remaining 2 eyes were half open and the other one was tightly closed. "Is everything ready?" Obito looked at Black Zetsu, standing beside him, and asked slowly. At this moment, Obito's voice became low under Obito's intentional control, and it seemed to have an unexpected sense of majesty. Black Zetsu, who was standing beside Obito, was slightly surprised. If he didn't know that the one sitting beside him was Uchiha Obito, he would have faintly felt that Uchiha Madara was reborn in his heart. Uchiha Obito, really a person good at hiding and disguising. Although he was slightly surprised in his heart, Black Zetsu didn't show such a surprise. Black Zetsu nodded to Obito with an expressionless face, then he stretched out his hands in front of his body. He slowly opened his clenched fists, then slowly pushed his palms upwards. Almost at the same time, when Black Zetsu pushed his hands up, a figure that was very similar to White Zetsu slowly emerged from the ground. White Zetsu appeared one after another. After more than 10 minutes, this kind of appearance didn't stop. Obito seemed to be a little tired, and his eyes turned to Kabuto, who was standing on the other side of him, wearing a large snake-patterned robe. As if he felt Obito's gaze, Kabuto also turned to look at Obito. He gently pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and a strange smile appeared on his face as he said to Obito, "Please rest assured, during this period of time, with the help of Akatsuki, I have found enough DNA of the deceased people. Now I am fully prepared, although I can't guarantee that I can fully exert the strength of these deceased people when they were alive, but 70% to 80% of their peak strength is not a problem." At the same time, saying this, Yakushi glanced at Black Zetsu, who was standing opposite him. Yakushi then said to Obito with a hint of mischievousness, "I have done my best during this period of time to increase the strength of the deceased people we can grasp to 95% of their peak strength. After all, the Azura, who made the whole ninja world tremble once again made everyone tremble under his power. The strongest person who had already passed away." Although Kabuto deliberately used such a slightly euphemistic tone, almost ridiculing Obito, but in fact he was talking to Black Zetsu, but Black Zetsu was completely unmoved and didn't have the feeling of losing control of his emotions when he saw Uchiha Madara resurrected by Edo Tensei. After seeing the reaction of Black Zetsu and Kabuto, the corners of Obito's mouth, which was hidden under his mask, curled up slightly. It seems that the effort he spent on Black Zetsu was not in vain. For Black Zetsu, although Uchiha Madara was still worthy of respect, but he was no longer willing to sacrifice everything for Uchiha Madara. Looking at Kabuto, at this moment, Kabuto's attitude of wanting to show his value in various ways made Obito very happy. Because people who want to show their value through various actions are often people who lack self-confidence in their own heart. For Kabuto's past, Obito didn't dare to say that he was clear about it, but he was clear about 50% to 60% of it. A person who is extremely eager to find his true self, as long as such a person wants to, there are many ways to control him. The entire White Zetsu Legion has the strength of a Chunin. Such a number advantage is enough to crush any ninja village. In terms of high-end strength, Kabuto's Edo Tensei was able to summon countless powerful ninjas who had already passed away. The improved Edo Tensei can exert the strength of the reincarnated person to a greater extent. The current Akatsuki, to be honest, is not afraid of the ninja coalition of the 5 great ninja villages. Fight! 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 Defeat the ninja coalition formed by the 5 great ninja villages. Pull the Hachibi and Nine Tails out of Column Force's body. Completely resurrect the Jubi. Let himself become the Jubi's column force and carry out the Eye of the Moon plan. Let himself see the smile of the girl he missed again. Let himself be able to return to the simple and pure life he has been away from for a long time. Rin, I miss you so much. A trace of sadness flashed in his eyes, and Abito slowly closed his eyes again. The tears in his eyes and the sour feeling slowly appeared on the tip of his nose. Abito almost tried his best to suppress such feelings. When Uchiha Abito opened his eyes again, there was no trace of confusion and sadness in his eyes, only determination. All the confusion and sadness are temporary, because as long as he can really carry out the Eye of the Moon plan, then he can regain everything he wants. And if the Eye of the Moon plan fails, he will just die. In that case, it is better to put all the doubts and confusion in his heart behind him and fight with all his strength. Get ready. We will launch the attack in 3 days. Abito looked at the 100,000 white Zetsu standing in front of him, and then looked at black Zetsu and Kabuto standing beside him, and said slowly, although we already have a powerful force that can compete with the 5 great ninja villages, and even in terms of high-end combat power, we still have countless people who have passed away and are not afraid of death. But we can't take it lightly. What we want is not a big battle, but a real victory in the war. In order to win, no matter how dirty the means are, you two will spare no effort to use it. Chapter 555. Abito silently calculated the power in his hands. 100,000 white Zetsu, with strength comparable to a Chunin, and dozens of dead people summoned by Juris Edo Tensei. Needless to say, 100,000 white Zetsu is the power used to fight against a large number of ninjas from the 5 great ninja villages. The powerhouses summoned by the Edo Tensei are the most important. After all, in the world of ninjas, although the number advantage is very important, when an individual's strength has exceeded the limit, it's not impossible for a single person to directly affect a war. Where is Kisame? Suddenly, Abito asked Black Zetsu who was standing beside him. Kisame is also a strong person that Uchiha Abito personally pulled into the Akatsuki. That kind of aggressive thinking and empty heart is the easiest sharp knife for Abito to control. And the fact is indeed so. Kisame has indeed done a good job over the years. The tasks given by him are basically completed very seriously. Even Itachi Uchiha, a bomb that can go out of control at any time, is monitored by Kisame, which is not bad. After hearing Abito's question, Black Zetsu, who was standing beside Uchiha Abito, immediately turned around and said to Abito, Kisame committed suicide because he failed the mission. Mission failed? Suicide? After hearing Black Zetsu's report, Abito's eyes were suddenly filled with a bit of astonishment. Kisame is not the kind of boring ninja with a fragile heart who can't accept his failure. On the contrary, because of Kisame's relatively strong nerves, his mental toughness is even stronger than most ninjas. Suddenly hearing these 2 words that had almost nothing to do with Kisame, Abito's brows, which were hidden under the mask, slowly knitted into a frown. Previously, we have been monitoring the people of Wood Leaf Village and Cloud Village. By chance, we found that Uzumaki Naruto, who is the Nine Tails column force, and Killer Bee, who is the Hachibi column force, suddenly disappeared in their village. Because our main goal of this war is to capture the Hachibi and Nine Tails, I directly sent a part of White Zetsu to search and analyze the last place where the Nine Tails column force and the Hachibi column force appeared. Black Zetsu looked at Abito, and without the slightest concealment, he directly told all his arrangements to Abito. Under the effect of White Zetsu's detection ability, we quickly found that the Nine Tails column force of Wood Leaf Village, Uzumaki Naruto, and the Hachibi column force of Cloud Village, Killer Bee, were in contact with each other, and they seemed to be rushing in a certain direction. In order to avoid any trouble under my instructions, White Zetsu summoned the closest member of our Akatsuki organization to the location, that is, Kisame. Although Black Zetsu seemed to be unexpectedly honest at the moment. Obito's heart involuntarily began to have a kind of vigilance against Black Zetsu. Did his bewitchment these days not play its proper role? Black Zetsu's current behavior doesn't seem to be completely obedient to him. On the contrary, it's more like he wants to eliminate the power that he can't control. Once suspicion began to appear in his heart, Obito's heart became sensitive. Such a war seems to rely too much on Black Zetsu's help. And the 100,000 White Zetsu army, such a force that can't be ignored, is firmly in the hands of Black Zetsu. And after Black Zetsu stole the Rinnegan from Woodleaf Village, he just used a reason to fool Obito, saying that he didn't find the second Rinnegan. For such a reason, although Obito didn't say anything, but obviously he didn't believe him. Obito thought that he could make Black Zetsu submit, and all kinds of performance during this time also made Obito feel that Black Zetsu had slowly fallen into his control. But at this moment, he didn't know why. But Obito felt that Black Zetsu's heart not only didn't become clear to him, but also became more vague, as if it was shrouded in smoke. After a battle, Kisame was seriously injured because he couldn't defeat the Hachibi Column Force, Killer Bee, and the 4th Raikage AI, who came later to support him, and for some reason, he directly used the shark muscle to commit suicide. The shark muscle itself has the characteristics of killing its master, so it directly swallowed Kisame, who had lost his life. And the shark muscle also became the trophy of the Hachibi Column Force, Killer Bee, who carried it with him. That's all the information I can get. After hearing that Kisame committed suicide and was swallowed by the shark muscle, Obito's frown loosened. The relationship between the shark muscle and the ghost shark couldn't be explained in a few words. Although it seemed that the ghost shark had indeed lost its life, and even its body, it wouldn't end so easily. Translator, Law Editor. Hitesh_, although the ghost shark had indeed lost its life, and even its body, it wouldn't end so easily. So that's how it is. After listening to Black Zetsu's words, Obito also slowly nodded and said a few understated words, as if he didn't care about the death of Kisame. However, the fact that Yondaime Raikage and Hachibi Jinchuriki were able to work together to kill Kisame is still worthy of our vigilance. The shinobi allied forces formed by the 5 great shinobi villages are not easy to deal with. We also need to have more capital in the limited time to defeat them. Black Zetsu looked at Obito, and his eyes became obscure, making people unable to figure out what he was thinking in his heart. Baguette, who was standing at the side, slowly walked a few steps towards the huge stone chair that Obito was sitting on, as if he wanted to show off his skills. Baguette said to Obito with a look of confidence, "Let's see if there's anything you can do. You don't have to worry. I have already made arrangements to enhance our strength." With that said, Kabuto's hand also began to make hand seals. Summoning Jutsu. Kabuto pressed his hand on the ground, and a summoning circle was completed in an instant. A relatively huge python revealed its figure from the smoke. This snake looks far larger than normal, but strangely, there's a strange bulge in the belly of this snake. Under the control of Medicine Master's pocket, this huge snake opened its mouth and spat out the obviously oversized object in its body as if it was vomiting. Soon, a white giant egg stained with mucus that seems to have a somewhat wooden feeling appeared in front of them. Although he couldn't immediately figure out what this white wooden egg was, a familiar aura was emitted from it. The ones who perceive it most clearly are Uchiha, Obito, and Black Zetsu. A part of their body was cultivated with the cells of the wood leaf first Hokage, Senju Takuma, so the aura of this white egg is very familiar to them. Because this white egg exudes the aura of the legendary god of shinobi, Senju Takuma. Chapter 556. In fact, there are only a few things in the ninja world that could be related to Senju Takuma's aura, such as the 100,000 White Zetsu army clone from Senju Takuma's genes. Black Zetsu shared the same body with White Zetsu. Uchiha Obito, whose body was filled with Hashirama's clone cells. Yamato, who was born from Orochimaru's research, and Shimura Danzo, who was already dead. no matter how he thought about it. The main body of the wooden egg was still as clear as day. Yamato, Black Zetsu looked at the huge wooden egg and murmured slightly. Kabuto, of course, also heard Black Zetsu's murmur, and with a little pride, he said to Obito and Black Zetsu, "There are actually many ways to make the power in our hands stronger. For example, we can search for the DNA of more deceased people to carry out the Edo Tensei. We can also use various experimental methods to allow the experts who are reincarnated from the Edo Tensei to display more of their strength when they were alive. But the simplest and fastest way is naturally to strengthen the 100,000 White Zetsu army." Kabuto adjusted the round-rimmed glasses on his nose and said to Obito and Black Zetsu, "The White Zetsu army was originally created with Senju Takuma's cells and the power of the Gedo Mazo, but the cells used to create the White Zetsu have also declined due to time, so the power of the various Mokuton ninjutsu used by the White Zetsu isn't that great." After saying that, Kabuto slowly walked to the side of the wooden egg. Regardless of the sticky body fluid attached to the wooden egg, Kabuto looked at it as if he was admiring a beautiful work of art, and there was a look of obsession in his eyes. But Yamato is different. He withstood the erosion of Senju Takuma's cells, and he really absorbed the Senju Takuma's cells in his body without any rejection. Although there was no way to exert the power of Mokuton to the extreme, it has to be said that the Senju Takuma cells in his body were actually activated to a certain extent. If we can extract the Senju Takuma's cells from his body and use the Gedo Golem to modify the White Zetsu army, we will have a huge increase in power. The army of 100,000 White Zetsu originally had the strength of a Chunin. After such strengthening and transformation, although there may be individual differences, most of them will obtain the strength of a Chunin. If we have 100,000, no, even if we only have 50,000 or even 40,000 elite Chunin-level army, the ninja allied forces formed by the 5 great ninja villages will definitely be at an extremely obvious disadvantage in terms of basic strength. Hearing Medicine Master Bag's words, whether it was the expressionless Black Zetsu or Uchiha Obito, both of them were slightly moved. Although the two of them didn't know exactly how Medicine Master's pocket was going to change the 100,000 White Zetsu army, Medicine Master's pocket's description made it seem feasible. "Then I'll leave everything to you." Taking a deep look at Medicine Master Bag, Uchiha Obito said slowly. Black Zetsu, who was standing beside Obito, also slowly walked to the side of the wooden egg and pressed his hand on it. A very pure Mokuton chakra was slowly transmitted from Black Zetsu's body to the wooden egg, and the wooden egg began to move a little under the stimulation of Mokuton chakra. This wooden egg was originally Yamato's ultimate means to protect himself, but in the end, it was still something made by using Mokuton chakra. At this moment, Black Zetsu used Mokuton chakra, which is almost the same as Yamato's, to forcibly invade the wooden egg and seize control of Yamato, who had lost his consciousness and was hiding in the wooden egg. As Black Zetsu's chakra continued to increase, the wooden egg, which was a little bit pale, became lively at this moment. The white wooden egg began to slowly be stained with a bit of green luster, and even a few tender green sprouts sprang out in some places. Finally, when Black Zetsu's chakra infusion reached a limit, the wooden egg that had been wrapped around Yamato's body finally couldn't withstand the huge power coming from inside. Like a ripe capsule, it directly burst open, and vines spread directly from the center of the wooden egg. In the center of the spreading vines, Yamato, who had lost consciousness but had no obvious injuries on his body, was lying in the center of the vines. Black Zetsu's powerful Mokuton power directly made Uchiha Obito, sitting on the stone chair and Medicine Master Bag, slightly surprised. Black Zetsu was really hiding something. But Black Zetsu didn't seem to feel that what he just did was strange. He directly grabbed Yamato's arm and dragged the unconscious Yamato in the direction of Medicine Master Bag. "I'll leave it to you." Looking at Medicine Master Bag, Black Zetsu directly threw Yamato in the direction of Medicine Master Bag. Looking at Yamato, who was flying towards him, a huge white snake suddenly came out from Medicine Master Pocket's loose robe. The huge white snake opened its mouth and directly caught Yamato, who was flying towards him in its mouth. The white snake didn't reveal its poisonous fangs, so Yamato didn't receive any injury. At this moment, Medicine Master Bag forcibly hid the indignation in his heart. After all, for the sensitive Medicine Master Bag, Black Zetsu's action was simply telling him that he was powerless against this wooden egg. Although this was a fact, but Medicine Master Bag still didn't want to be humiliated like this. I don't need you to say more. Looking at Black Zetsu, Medicine Master Bag coldly said. Obviously, it was such a short conversation, but it was really full of gunpowder smell. And as the nominal leader of Akatsuki organization, Uchiha Obito coldly looked at Medicine Master Bag and Black Zetsu, who were at daggers drawn, and the atmosphere was tense. Persuade? Uchiha Obito didn't think about such a thing at all. What Uchiha Obito wanted was not how harmonious the organization was. What Obito wanted was to have enough power to compete with the joint forces of the 5 great shinobi villages. Now he, Black Zetsu, and Medicine Master Bag have a common enemy. And his biggest goal now is to defeat the 5 great shinobi villages as a common enemy. Once the 5 great shinobi villages are defeated, the Eye of the Moon plan will be implemented. At that time, everything will be under Uchiha Obito's control. Dealing with this small disharmony is simply a simple matter. Chapter 557. With the fermentation of time and the news of the war spread like wildfire, the entire ninja world seemed to be shrouded in a layer of haze. The ninja world has experienced too much pain because of the war. When the news of the war began to spread, almost everyone living in the ninja world began to become nervous. Everyone in the ninja world was like a frightened animal, doing everything possible to prevent themselves from being hurt by the upcoming war. But for those who are at the top of the power, who can benefit from the war is the grandest carnival. In the daimyo house of the Land of Fire, the daimyo of the Land of Fire didn't seem to be worried at the moment. Instead, his eyes were very excited. The Land of Fire is the strongest village in the ninja world, Wood Leaf Ninja Village. In the First Shinobi World War, Second Shinobi World War, and the Third Shinobi World War not long ago, although Wood Leaf itself also suffered a certain degree of loss, but there is no doubt that every time they stood in the middle of the battlefield as the winner. It is precisely because of the victory of Wood Leaf again and again that the daimyo of the Land of Fire have a kind of almost blind faith in Wood Leaf. Looking at some of the predictions about the war and the temporary plan of Wood Leaf submitted by the 4th Hokage Wave Kaze Watergate, the daimyo of the Land of Fire showed a bit of a greedy smile at the moment. The 5 great ninja villages are attacking the Akatsuki of the Land of Rain. What a grand event this is. Slowly picking up a wide-mouthed wine cup beside him, the daimyo of the Land of Fire showed a touch of fanaticism in his eyes. Expand the territory. Expand the territory. As the supreme leader of a country, in addition to letting the country pass on smoothly in his own hands, what else is worth being so excited about? Naturally, it is to make the country stronger in his own hands. The strength of a country is reflected in many aspects, but the most obvious and the most significant is the expansion of the territory. The daimyo of the Land of Fire has begun to slowly realize the aging of his body, and the time he can stay in this world to enjoy the glory and wealth is not much. But when he looked back at the past few decades, even though he had achieved quite a lot of political achievements, he still felt that it wasn't enough for the Fire Nation. And now, an opportunity that was hard to come by was placed right in front of the Fire Country's eyes. This time, the Rain Country could be said to have angered everyone. In the eyes of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, there is no possibility of failure in this war. When the 5 great shinobi villages won the war, the daimyo of the Land of Fire decided to gather the daimyo of several other countries and directly use their power to erase the Land of Rain from the map of the shinobi world. At that time, the 5 major countries would jointly divide the Country of Rain, although the territory of the Country of Rain wasn't that big. However, if the Fire Nation could get a share of this land, it would be considered as an unparalleled achievement in expanding their territory. Just as the great name of the Fire Nation was immersed in leaving his name in the annals of history for future generations to look up to, a burst of noise suddenly sounded from outside the palace where the great name of the Fire Nation was. Assassin! Assassin! Guards! An assassin has broken into the palace. Catch him! Don't let him get away! Kill! 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 The harsh shouting directly broke the silence of the night, and also broke the delusion of the daimyo of the Land of Fire about the victory of the war. People are always afraid of death, and for the daimyo of the Land of Fire who is in a high position and lives in luxury, his life is naturally more precious. After hearing the harsh shouting outside, a chill spread from the heart directly swept the whole body of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. In the previous wars, no matter how anxious the war situation was, each shinobi village maintained a certain restraint between each other. That is, they try to put the battlefield in an area that is difficult for civilians to get close to, and didn't attack the political system of the country. So subconsciously, the daimyo of the Land of Fire didn't think that he would be attacked. He just thought that the worst situation is that Leaf will lose and pay a certain amount of compensation. But now, as the enemy of the Land of Fire, Amigakure has obviously given up such a bottom line and began to directly and blatantly attack the political leader of the Land of Fire, the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Fear swept the heart of the daimyo of the Land of Fire in an instant. The daimyo now wants to open the door of his room and let all his guards come to his side to protect his safety. But the reason in the daimyo's heart is constantly reminding him that he must not expose his position at will. The daimyo of the Land of Fire has experienced a lot of things, but most of his experiences are political games. This kind of killing without spilling blood is the most familiar thing to the daimyo of the Land of Fire. But now, the way the daimyo of the Land of Fire is completely unacceptable to the daimyo of the Land of Fire. A thin layer of sweat has been attached to the daimyo's forehead because of fear and tension. In order to prevent himself from screaming, the daimyo of the Land of Fire even covered his mouth with his hand. The originally elegant and lazy sitting posture had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the daimyo of the Fire Nation directly fell to the ground. His body was slightly curled up. Obviously, he wanted to use this method to give himself some sense of security. Finally, after suffering from the fear in his heart for a long time, the shouting outside his room gradually subsided. The daimyo of the Land of Fire's ears are very keen to catch the footsteps in the corridor outside his room. This kind of footsteps can only be made by people who are used to the palace for a long time. The daimyo of the Land of Fire knew that the guards or servants of the palace came, so he quickly sat up from the posture of falling on the ground. Tidying up his clothes and hair, there is no trace of the frightened appearance just now. Just after the daimyo of the Land of Fire tidied up, the door of the daimyo's room was gently knocked. The daimyo slightly cleared his throat and said to the door with a rather solemn and noble voice, "Come in." Hearing the voice of the daimyo, the door of the room was slowly pushed open. Two blood-soaked guards and a group of servants from the palace walked into the room and knelt on the ground. Their armors were slightly damaged, and they were covered in blood. Chapter 558. This humble servant greets your majesty. This humble servant greets your majesty. A group of guards and servants kowtowing in front of the daimyo of the Land of Fire shouted together to the daimyo of the Land of Fire. But after hearing such a shout, the daimyo of the Land of Fire looked very indifferent, as if the person who was scared out of his wits before wasn't him. In an understatement, the daimyo of the Land of Fire said to the guards and servants who were kowtowing in front of him, "Get up." Hearing the words of the daimyo, the two guards who had been kowtowing in front of the daimyo with slightly damaged armor stood up from their kowtowing posture. As for the other servants with lower statuses, they maintained their kneeling posture and retreated to both sides of the room. Reporting to your majesty, just now this humble servant discovered an unknown ninja who forced his way into your majesty's bedroom. After the verbal warning didn't work, this humble servant immediately led the guards of the Land of Fire to stop this ninja. After a battle, this assassin was finally killed. I hope your majesty won't be frightened by this humble servant's failure of duty. These two people wearing armor are not ordinary soldiers. They have the ability to fight ninjas, but they are not strong people who came out of the ninja village. The daimyo of the Land of Fire is reluctant to regard them as lowly servants. Even if these two guards seem to be asking for punishment, the daimyo will never blame them. Instead, he will go up and constantly appease them. Sure enough, the daimyo of the Land of Fire slowly stood up from where he was originally sitting. He walked to the front of the two guards and said to them with a kind smile, "Sir, I'm here to help you. The two of you don't have to be like this. Encountering such a thing is unexpected. Fortunately, with the joint efforts of the two of you, in the future, the enemy will be killed. This is already a very good record. How can I pick bones in an egg and criticize the two of you?" The words of the daimyo of the Land of Fire fell into the ears of the two guards. Naturally, they were very happy. Looking at the expression on the faces of the two guards, the daimyo knew that he has successfully won a wave of people's hearts. He reached into his bosom and took out a high-grade silk handkerchief. Then, he slowly pressed the handkerchief in his hand onto the blood-stained armor. It seemed like he was wiping the armor for the two guards. As people with a certain level of skill, the two guards naturally noticed the movement of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Before the daimyo of the Land of Fire really wiped his armor, the two guards immediately knelt on the ground and said to the daimyo of the Land of Fire, "Your Majesty, the two of us was lucky enough to be favored by your Majesty, and we were able to work in your Majesty's palace. With a high salary, we can enjoy a luxurious life. This kind of life is the daimyo of the land of the land of the land of the Land of Fire. To be able to receive such treatment from your Majesty, we are already in fear and trepidation. How can we let your Majesty personally wipe our armor for us, and let your precious body be tainted?" After listening to the words of the two guards, the daimyo still squatted down by himself. He took the white, exquisitely embroidered handkerchief in his hand and began to wipe the two guards who were half kneeling in front of him. After wiping a few times, the originally white handkerchief was already stained with blood. When they saw the highest leader of the Land of the Fire personally wipe their armor, the feelings of gratitude directly filled the hearts of the two guards. There was a faint feeling of tears in their eyes. Feeling that he had done enough, the daimyo pinched his handkerchief in his hand and slowly stood up from his squatting position. He then said to the two guards half kneeling in front of him, "Don't worry, I'm sorry. This daimyo is just a scholar without the strength to truss a chicken. Because of the promising ancestors, I have the opportunity to inherit the position of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Since the succession, this daimyo has been questioning myself. How can I become the daimyo of such a great country? In terms of thesis, there are countless civil officials in the Land of Fire who are better than me. In terms of martial arts, I can't even wield a long sword a few times. How can such a person be a qualified daimyo?" After thinking carefully, I finally came to a conclusion. The daimyo of the Land of Fire slowly paced in front of the two half-kneeling guards in front of him. His face was full of worry for the people of the Land of Fire. Although I am not proficient in literature and martial arts, but after careful consideration, I found that I can still do something. I am not proficient in literature, but I can let every scholar in the Land of Fire be able to use their pen and ink to their heart's content. I am not proficient in martial arts, but I can let all the martial artists in the Land of Fire be able to get the respect they deserve. With that, the daimyo looked at the two guards half kneeling in front of him. Both of you are the best among the many martial artists in the Land of Fire. Even without the same environment as the ninja village, you can still cultivate to such a level. It can't be said that you are talented. More importantly, you're still willing to serve under me. You fought to guard me. You were injured to protect me. How can I stand by and watch you coldly because of such a dirty thing?" The daimyo's words were full of emotion, and even his eyes were filled with tears. The daimyo of the Land of Fire has become like this. Not to mention the two low-born martial artists who are half kneeling in front of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. At this moment, the two guards kneeling in front of the daimyo have tears in their eyes. They have all knelt in front of the daimyo of the Land of Fire and shouted loudly, "We are willing to go through water and tread on fire for your Majesty." Hearing the voices of the two guards, The daimyo immediately helped the two guards who were half kneeling on the ground up with a face full of excitement. After encouraging the two guards with a few more words and promising some rewards, the two guards walked out of the room with faces full of gratitude. Seeing the two guards have walked away, the daimyo raised his hand and looked at the white handkerchief in his hand that has been stained with blood. His brows slightly wrinkled, as if throwing away a very disgusting garbage. He threw the handkerchief in his hand to the side. Glancing at the person kneeling on the ground, who was obviously the leader of the slaves, the daimyo coldly asked, "Have you found out the identity of that assassin?" The slave who was kneeling on the side slowly stood up, then whispered a few words in the ear of the daimyo. In the eyes of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, a trace of anger emerged in the blink of an eye. Akatsuki Organization. Chapter 559. In the tense period of preparation for the war, an uninvited guest came to Woodleaf Village. The status of this uninvited guest seems to be very high. Even the leader of Woodleaf Village, Yondaime Watergate, the fourth Hokage, personally came to greet him with a hat that represents his identity as the Hokage. Looking at the palanquin, which was deliberately reduced in decorations, but still looked expensive, carried slowly by 16 strong men, Watergate's expression hidden under the hat became very serious. Today, in order to meet such a character, Watergate brought almost all the high-end combat forces that can be transferred here. Watergate is very clear. Anyone can face the risk, but only this person must not have the slightest accident. Finally, under the support of 16 strong men, the luxurious palanquin came to Watergate. As the leader of Woodleaf Village, Watergate went directly to the palanquin and personally opened the curtain in front of the palanquin for the person sitting in it. The curtain in front of the palanquin was slowly opened, and the person sitting in it also revealed his face. Slightly unhealthy white skin, slightly old appearance. This person is the real ruler of the Land of Fire, daimyo of the Land of Fire. Although nominally, the status of the Land of Fire and the Hokage of Woodleaf Village is the same. After all, Woodleaf Village is rooted in the Land of Fire, and in theory, it is under the rule of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Before, Woodleaf Village suffered great damage because of the invasion of the Six Paths of Pain, and it was also with the help of the daimyo of the Land of Fire that they were able to recover from the damage so quickly. So at this moment, although Watergate's behavior of personally opening the curtain for the daimyo of the Land of Fire seems a bit undignified, but it is not incomprehensible. If it was normal times, seeing Watergate so humble, the daimyo of the Land of Fire will certainly not let go of such an opportunity to show his charm as a leader. But at this moment, the expression of the daimyo of the Land of Fire is very unnatural. Watergate is very keen to capture a trace of unconcealable fear from the eyes of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Was the information that he had received all this time true? That's right. As the military force of the Fire Nation, Watergate naturally heard about the invasion of foreign enemies. However, due to the Fire Nation's identity, Woodleaf Village couldn't put such a high-ranking person on their monitoring list. Therefore, the information obtained by Watergate was actually incomplete. He only knew that Akatsuki seemed to have broken their long-standing practice and began to attack some people in the political system without military force. Fourth Hokage, daimyo, came out from his palanquin and deeply looked at Beaufort Watergate. And when he determined that the person standing in front of him was the one who had created countless brilliant achievements and had personally defeated the former leader of Akatsuki Organization, Six Paths Pain, his expression finally relaxed a little. "Your Majesty," Watergate took a few steps back, bowed respectfully to the daimyo of the Country of Fire, then stepped forward and said, "I have also heard about the things that happened in the past few days. Now, all the people present are the elites of our Woodleaf Village, so daimyo doesn't have to worry about your own safety. Please come with me, and after we reach a safe place, we will discuss how to solve the recent problems." Daimyo of the Fire Nation heard Watergate's words and looked around at the ninjas standing around him. Most of these ninjas are people who have made a name for themselves in the ninja world, and Daimyo of the Fire Nation also knows many familiar faces and even people who have names and nicknames. although Daimyo of the Fire Nation has always had a certain amount of trust in his guards, but during this period of time, he has been attacked more than once. Although such attacks were resisted by his guard again and again, but at the same time, it also made Daimyo of the Fire Nation a little uneasy about the ability of his guards. Now that he can see so many strong people of the shinobi world standing beside him, the Daimyo of the Land of Fire also slowly relaxed from his originally hanging posture. Fourth Hokage, please lead the way. I'm really tired these days. Even if Daimyo didn't say it, Watergate can very keenly judge from his face and expression at this moment. Daimyo obviously hasn't slept well for a long time. Watergate can roughly judge the level of Daimyo of the Fire Nation's guards. If an ordinary Jonin encounters such a team of guards, Minato can guarantee that he will lose without a doubt. After all, this is a team that the Daimyo of the Land of Fire used their huge wealth to create. Their armor and weapons were even custom-made at a high price from the Land of Iron, the only remaining samurai in the shinobi world. But after going through the attacks of Akatsuki organization, more than half of the members of this group of guards were actually reduced. It seems that Akatsuki organization really didn't just launch a tentative attack on Daimyo of the Fire Nation, but they really want to put Daimyo of the Fire Nation to death. But Watergate knows that such a place is not suitable to talk about such things. So, forcibly suppressing the confusion in his heart, Watergate very respectfully led Daimyo of the Fire Nation to the place he had prepared to rest. Not long after, Watergate took Daimyo of the Fire Nation to a place that looks very luxuriously decorated. Here was originally the property of a very famous businessman in the Woodleaf village, but not long ago, after investigation by Umbu, they suddenly found that this businessman seems to have an unclear relationship with Akatsuki organization. So this businessman was directly taken away by Umbu, and this magnificent property was directly left behind. But at this moment, Daimyo of the Fire Nation didn't have the time to check how exquisite the garden in this property is and how colorful the dugong is. After Daimyo of the Fire Nation arrived inside the house, he immediately fell on the sofa, and the fatigue of his whole body seemed to have reached the peak at this moment. Looking at the sleepy face of Daimyo of the Fire Nation, Watergate tentatively said to Daimyo of the Fire Nation, "Your Majesty is tired from the long journey. You might as well take a rest first. Anyway, you can fully trust that we can guarantee your safety here. At least 3 Jonin will be around your room to protect you, and we will also arrange a certain number of Umbu to investigate your surrounding environment at all times." Hearing Watergate's words, Daimyo of the Fire Nation finally nodded tiredly after thinking for a while, and with the help of his servant, he walked towards the bedroom of this house. Chapter 560. When the Daimyo of the Land of Fire fell on the bed, he fell into a deep sleep almost instantly. After seeing that the Daimyo had fallen asleep, the servants also retreated from the room one by one and stood outside the door, slowly waiting for their master to call them. At the moment, Watergate was already standing with the guard leader of the Daimyo of the Land of Fire. Watergate made a gesture to invite the guard leader to sit beside him. Originally, the guard leader's heart was still a little nervous. After all, in terms of status, Watergate, the 4th Hokage, is at the same level as the Daimyo. For most people, Minato was a living legend, and such a legend suddenly invited him, who was only a little famous, to sit with him. The guard leader was so excited that words couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. But in the face of Minato's amiable smile, the nervousness in the guard leader's heart slowly subsided. The guard leader plucked up his courage and sat opposite to Watergate, then said to Watergate cautiously, "Hokage-sama, do you have any orders?" Hearing the rather nervous words of the guard leader, Minato smiled amiably at the guard leader and said, "That's right. It's nothing. You don't have to be nervous. To put it bluntly, you and I are actually both warriors. It's just that the direction of our development is not the same. But as a warrior, that kind of straightforward heart is the same. The reason why I called you over is not to question or criticize you, but simply to ask your daimyo what he experienced. What did you guys go through?" Watergate's words were very sincere. He didn't mean to put on airs at all, the guard leader, sitting opposite to Watergate, was very comfortable listening to him. Under the deliberate guidance of Watergate, his thoughts gradually immersed in the almost endless attacks he experienced in the past period of time. The guard leader slowly spoke to Watergate about the battles he experienced as the leader of the daimyo's guards. But the more he listened, the more Watergate felt the matter was strange. As a ninja, Watergate was very clear that if a ninja really wants to kill or capture his mission target, he will stop at nothing. Hiding his true identity, sneaking in, drugging, assassination are all common things for a ninja. But listening to the description of the guard leader, it seems that all the members of Akatsuki organization who have been attacking the daimyo of the Land of Fire during this period of time, almost all of them directly fought with the guards. And it seems after the battle, the attackers from Akatsuki organization even directly wore the Akatsuki organization's trademark black uniform with red clouds. They didn't pursue killing a few people, only pursuing how bloody and terrible the scene was. Such a method of action was truly strange to the extreme. And the strangest thing is, except for the first time we defeated the enemy and left the enemy's head, every time after we killed the enemy's body was very strange and directly integrated into the soil and disappeared. Originally, Watergate was just quietly listening to the guard leader retelling the events that happened during this period of time, but suddenly Watergate heard such a sentence. Watergate immediately ended his long silence and said to the guard leader, "Wait. You mean you left the enemy's head? Can you let me take a look?" Hearing Watergate's words, although the guard leader was a little confused, he nodded and said to Watergate, "Of course, I will bring you the enemy's head that we have kept. To be honest, this person's appearance is really strange, although I have seen a lot of strange things, but the appearance of this enemy is really strange." After that, the guard leader walked towards the place where the guard were stationed outside. After a while, the guard leader came in with a box. Putting the enemy's head in the box in front of Watergate, the guard leader opened the box for Watergate. Watergate looked at the wooden box, and the enemy's face appeared in front of Watergate. Watergate had a very systematic understanding of the composition of the members of Akatsuki organization, so he naturally knew this person with a strange face, because this person's appearance was exactly the same as the half-black, half-white Zetsu in the information. The only difference was that this Zetsu's whole face was white, without any black part. Zetsu? Hearing Watergate suddenly call out such a name, the guard leader was a little surprised. "Hokage-sama, do you know this person?" Watergate nodded, then said to the guard leader, "Indeed, this person was actually mentioned in the information collected by Woodleaf. However, it doesn't match the physical characteristics in our data. I'm not sure what's going on now. I don't know if I can take this head temporarily and give it to the people of our ninja village to study." Hearing Watergate's inquiry, in fact, the guard leader wanted to directly agree. But after all, such a thing involves the daimyo of the Land of Fire, so the guard leader couldn't immediately respond to Watergate's inquiry at the moment. Obviously, Watergate also saw the entanglement in the guard leader's heart at the moment, and quickly reacted and said to the guard leader, "Of course, this is not a matter of short time. It's not too late to talk about these things after His Majesty is rested." Hearing Watergate's words, the guard leader's face, which was originally very entangled, became slightly better. "I still have a lot of things to deal with. Please protect His Majesty. After His Majesty has rested, inform me to come and discuss with His Majesty." Watergate looked at the guard leader and said to him, and the guard leader also understood and respectfully saluted Watergate. "That's natural. Please rest assured, Hokage-sama." Looking at the guard leader, Watergate smiled and directly walked out of this exquisite courtyard, specially prepared for the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Watergate didn't rush to his office. Instead, he slowly walked on the street of Woodleaf and began to think about the Akatsuki's current behavior. In fact, not only the Land of Fire's daimyo, several other villages also sent their country's daimyo to Woodleaf, and the Akatsuki was very deliberately, almost provocatively attacked them. What's the benefit of such behavior? Watergate couldn't understand it for a while, because this will only make the countries more united against a common enemy, and the Akatsuki didn't seem to have the slightest benefit. Chapter 561. Yandame-sama, I'm really sorry that we have to meet for such a reason. When I first came to Woodleaf because I was too tired, I had to ask you to forgive me for resting for so many days. The Land of Fire daimyo sat in his seat and looked at Watergate, who was sitting opposite him, with a slightly apologetic look. In fact, the Land of Fire daimyo's heart was also a little nervous. After all, when he recalled his attitude when he first came to Woodleaf, he felt that if someone treated him like that, he would have a grudge in his heart. After all, it wasn't Watergate's fault that he was attacked, but when he came to Woodleaf to seek protection from Watergate, Watergate also directly greeted him with a large group of powerful ninjas, and in a hurry, he also prepared a courtyard that was worthy of his identity as a place to rest. Watergate has done a good job, but his attitude toward Watergate is indeed a little too arrogant. As the leader of the most powerful military organization in the country, Watergate's status is the same as his, and he doesn't have to cater to his responsibilities. In order to relieve the anxiety in his heart, and also to let Minato do his best to protect him in the future, the daimyo of the Fire Country actually lowered himself very much. This could be heard from the daimyo's words just now. Watergate has been a Hokage for so many years, so he is naturally very clear about these psychological changes. Although the Land of Fire daimyo at this moment is very humble, but that's just because the Land of Fire daimyo succumbed to the fear in his heart. It's not something that can be relied on. Watergate also very humbly said to the Land of Fire daimyo, "Your Majesty doesn't have to worry about it. This is human nature." As the Land of Fire daimyo, you naturally don't often encounter such frightening things. In your experience from your palace all the way to Woodleaf Village, I also know a little about it from your guard leader. Woodleaf Village is also a part of the Land of Fire. As a member of the many people of the Land of Fire, naturally, we have to step forward for the sake of the Land of Fire. Protecting the Land of Fire daimyo is also the responsibility and obligation of our Woodleaf Village. The Land of Fire daimyo quietly listened to Watergate's words, although Watergate's words are quite political, but as the head of the political system of the Land of Fire, this way of speaking is the most acceptable to the daimyo. The daimyo's face showed a somewhat gratified smile. Apparently, he understood the meaning of Watergate's words. The daimyo didn't continue this topic with Watergate, because just now Watergate's words was actually a promise to himself. Protecting his safety is Watergate's task. As two smart people, in fact, they don't need to speak so clearly between each other. A little bit of pointers is enough for them to understand each other. Hokage-sama, I have read the battle plan you submitted to me before more than once or twice during this time. Although I dare not say that I fully understand what kind of position Hokage-sama is going to put Woodleaf Village in this shinobi world war and what kind of benefits you want the Land of Fire to obtain from it. But I think I've already found 3 of them. All the plans are very good, rigorous, and operable. But I still feel that it's a little insufficient. In the shinobi world, the military and political affairs of a country are actually separated. The daimyo is responsible for government affairs, and the village leader is responsible for military affairs. Under normal circumstances, unless there was a request from one of the parties, there would be no overstepping their boundaries. But at this moment, the daimyo of the Land of Fire obviously broke such a rule and began to express his opinion on the military planning of Woodleaf Village. Hearing the daimyo's words, Watergate's eyes also vaguely showed a bit of interest. Although Watergate tried to hide the interest in his eyes, the daimyo of the Land of Fire still caught the slightly disrespectful interest in Watergate's eyes from Watergate's eyes and expression. If other people dared to do such a disrespectful behavior to him, the daimyo of the Land of Fire will definitely flip the table and leave on the spot, and if this person's status is not high enough, he may directly kill this guy. But at this moment, the person sitting opposite him, to put it nicely, is the person he is asking for protection, and, to put it bluntly, if this person really has any disloyalty, with a little effort, he can directly change the position of the daimyo. This is the shinobi world. This is a big country. Even if your status is high, once a powerful person wants to make a move on you, they can find enough loopholes to deal with you. Resisting the discomfort in his heart, the daimyo then said to Watergate, "In this plan, in the last appendix, the benefits that can be obtained after the victory of the war are mentioned. Some of them are naturally very exciting, such as the long-term peace of the shinobi world and the equal trade between the 5 major countries. But I still feel that there is something missing, and that is the punishment for the Rain Country. I don't want our shinobi to fight a hard battle and shed their blood for something that sounds good, but is very empty. You don't want the shinobi to get nothing? You don't want yourself, you don't want your country to get nothing, right? Looking at the impassioned words of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, he directly put himself in the position of all shinobi. But at this moment, the greed in the eyes of the daimyo of the Land of Fire was so obvious, so undisguised. Of course, the daimyo is looking forward to victory. Of course, he is looking forward to the Land of Fire being the leader of the 5 major countries. But now, what the daimyo needs more is a vigorous battle, a good enough result, and a great achievement that is enough to leave his name in history. With excitement in his eyes, the daimyo clenched his fists and looked at Watergate with eagerness. In fact, such post-war negotiations have never been the responsibility of the ninja village as an armed organization, but the Land of Fire sent its own political talents and negotiators to reach this agreement. But due to the dual system of the country, the daimyo of the Land of Fire had to ask for the opinion of Watergate. And Watergate, as the supreme leader of the country's armed forces, is naturally the gardener who personally cultivated such an extraordinary result. The Land of Rain? Obviously, in the words of the daimyo of the Land of Fire just now, he emphasized the 3 words of the Land of Rain. Watergate can feel the almost fanatical pursuit in the eyes of the daimyo when he said these 3 words. Of course, the sharp-minded Watergate also understood the mind of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Is it really the temptation that every person in a high position can't resist? Chapter 562. In the Akatsuki's base, Black Zetsu was standing in front of the huge Gedomazo in a daze. He casually glanced at the thick vines extending from the Gedomazo's body. On these vines, there was a slightly shriveled flower bud that was used to nurture White Zetsu's clone. Just as Black Zetsu was casually glancing at the flower bud, suddenly, the originally shriveled and yellow flower bud was no longer shriveled and yellow, and even the shriveled state began to slowly fill up. Under the slightly dim light, one could vaguely see the human figure inside. Seeing that the originally shriveled flower bud was filled up again, Black Zetsu slowly walked to the foot of the Gedomazo and pressed his hand on the body of the Gedomazo. Chakra was transmitted from Black Zetsu's body to the Gedomazo, and the Gedomazo directly transmitted the chakra to the Gedomazo. After a while, under the unrestrained supply of chakra from Black Zetsu, the Gedomazo directly became mature. The petals of the Gedomazo opened, and a naked White Zetsu's clone jumped out of the Gedomazo. As if he didn't feel anything strange about being naked, this White Zetsu directly walked to the front of Black Zetsu and directly knelt down. "Greetings, Jitsu-sama." Black Zetsu didn't know whether this White Zetsu's clone was paying respect to the main body of White Zetsu or Black Zetsu. Anyway, Black Zetsu looked at the half-kneeling White Zetsu's clone and said coldly, "What's the situation?" When the White Zetsu's clone heard Black Zetsu's question, he lowered his head even more because he wanted to appear more respectful. Reporting to Jitsu-sama, during this period of time, I and the other 4 White Zetsu's clone have been attacking the daimyo of the 5 major countries day and night. The daimyo of the Land of Fire that I am responsible for has reached the Wood Leaf Village at this moment, and the other daimyo of several countries seem to be about to be unable to support the ninja villages of their countries. In order to ensure that their own country's Kage would not be attacked by us in the coming war, they would definitely gather all of them together. And because of our unconventional actions this time, the ninjas of the 5 major countries will definitely be excited, and in the following battle, they will definitely be more united to buy time for us. Although White Zetsu's doppelganger had only said a few short sentences, it had revealed all of Black Zetsu's plans. Obviously, such continuous attacks on the daimyo of the 5 major countries were not arranged by Uchiha Obito, but by Black Zetsu's own decision. White Zu's clone was also very loyal to Black Zu. He obeyed Black Zoo's orders. Just as Watergate thought before, the purpose of Black Zetsu doing this is to make the ninjas of the 5 major countries more united against a common enemy. After all, even if they look down on the daimyo of their country, once the daimyo of their country has an accident, it is no different from directly slapping the face of the ninjas of each country. No ninja would allow such a thing to happen. At this moment, what Black Zetsu was looking forward to was not the so-called victory at all. What Black Zetsu needed at this moment was the most abundant and most tense time. Black Zetsu glanced at White Zetsu's doppelganger, who was half kneeling in front of him, and slowly put his hand on the head of White Zetsu's doppelganger. Chakra continued to pour into the head of White Zetsu's doppelganger. White Zetsu's doppelganger, who was still quite intelligent at this moment, his eyes became dull almost in an instant. White Zetsu's doppelganger is just a consumable for Black Zetsu. The reason why he chose this doppelganger of White Zetsu's doppelganger to carry out his plan is only because this doppelganger has the strength of an elite jonin after being transformed by Kabuto Yakushi. Now that his task has been completed, he can no longer keep the consciousness that he has deliberately cultivated. Recently, Black Zetsu can clearly feel that because of some of his previous actions, whether intentional or unintentional, Uchiha Obito has become vigilant against him. At this moment, Kabuto, who wanted to prove his worth through all kinds of things, was staring at him like a mad dog. Although he wasn't afraid of Kabuto and Uchiha Obito joining hands, in such a critical period, it was better to have less trouble than more trouble. As for the remaining 4 White Zetsu's doppelganger, once they force all the daimyo of the 5 major countries to the ninja villages of his country, Black Zetsu will also make a move on them and erase all their intelligence. Anyway, in the army of 100,000 White Zetsu, only 5 White Zetsu's doppelganger are a little abnormal. It is not easy to attract attention. Black Zetsu's doppelganger, who was half kneeling in front of him, waved his hand gently, and with a slightly dull expression, directly merged into the soil under Black Zetsu's control to join the rest of the White Zetsu's army. Black Zetsu looked at the Geto Mazo standing in front of him, and his eyes slightly drifted. Mother-sama, soon, you will be able to resurrect from a long sleep. Uchiha Obito, Uchiha Madara, they're just chess pieces in my hands. Black Zetsu's eyes were full of indifference and coldness at this moment. It seems that in order to achieve his goal, Black Zetsu can do anything. From ancient times to the present, Black Zetsu has been like this step by step. He slowly turned from immaturity to maturity, and from maturity to wily and astute. Even now, such a war that swept the entire shinobi world is nothing more than a game of chess for Black Zetsu. People in the world think that they can control their own destiny. They are constantly fighting. Some people succeed and are regarded as heroes. Some people fail and are regarded as devils. But these so-called successes and failures all came from the secret manipulation of one person. This person is Black Zetsu. Wandering in the torrent of history, he became the powerful support behind every hero and the whisper of every devil in the ears of every devil king. A pair of hands holding both black and white. All the creatures in the world are just playthings in his hands. And Black Zetsu has only one purpose, and that is to bring his mother back to this world. Chapter 563. Black Zetsu's secret plan was gradually completed with the passage of time. As the daimyo of the 5 major countries, no one was reckless. When the kage of the 5 major ninja villages noticed that the Akatsuki had begun to move against the kage of their country, they also came up with a plan together. That is, gather all the daimyo of the 5 major countries in a secret place, and then send elite ninjas to protect the political leaders of these 5 countries. After all, now is the edge of the outbreak of war. The combat power of every ninja village is precious. In order to protect the daimyo of their country, they must send one or even several ninjas who are strong enough to protect the daimyo, in addition to occupying a lot of ordinary ninja resources. In order to ensure the smooth progress of the war, the Kage of the 5 major ninja villages finally found a very secret place after a discussion and sent an appropriate amount of ninjas to protect the daimyo of their country. After experiencing such a thing, almost every ninja in the shinobi village was quite excited. So although a part of the combat power was occupied for no reason, it was not a loss. Let's put all the actions of the 5 major countries and the internal actions of the Akatsuki aside. The 2 people who played an important role in this war, the Nine Tails Column Force, Uzumaki Naruto, and the Hachibi Column Force, Killer Bee, also came to a secret place in the Land of Lightning. This place is the place where the 4th Reikage AI said can let Naruto master the power of the 9 tails in his body. Yo, we came to this place. This is the place to get power. As long as you can complete the training, you can become super strong. Oh, yet Killer Bee looked at the familiar scene in front of him and said to Naruto, who was standing next to him, in his own strange tone. Although Killer Bee's way of speaking was very strange, Naruto gradually began to adapt to Killer Bee's way of speaking after getting along with him along the way. After all, although Killer Bee looks very wild and unruly, in fact, he is a very easy person to get along with. How could Naruto reject such a person in his heart? Instead of talking to Killer Bee, Naruto turned his head and began to carefully observe the place where he could master the power of 9 tails. This place looked more like an altar with a long history. Many broken stone pillars and some broken sculptures were silently telling Killer Bee and Whirlpool Naruto about the long history of this place. There were also many places in the ruins that had some totems and murals that people couldn't understand. Naruto couldn't help but lift his feet and walk around the ruins. Finally, a relatively complete mural appeared in front of Naruto. The mural looked a little abstract, but for some reason, Naruto unexpectedly understood the meaning of the mural. It was a very tall and unusual figure. This figure was outlined with black paint, and in the hand of the figure was a circular staff. Around the figure were circles of light and shadow outlined with gold and white, making people feel that this person didn't seem to belong to this world. On the contrary, it was more like a feeling of transcendence. Of course, what attracted Naruto's attention the most was the black figure's eyes, which were painted with white and purple ripples at the same time. Naruto recognized this pair of eyes because this pair of eyes was the eyes of the person who made Naruto face his weakness. Sage of the 6 Paths, Naruto's mouth couldn't help but murmur the name of this legendary figure. This pair of eyes were the eyes of the leader of Akatsuki, Pain, who destroyed almost the entire village of Konoha with his own strength and brought the biggest disaster to Konoha since the establishment of the village, the legendary eyes of Immortal Rinnegan. Naruto didn't know if it was his own illusion or something else, but he always felt that the eyes of the Sage of the 6 Paths in this mural were not as empty as in the painting. Instead, he felt like he was being stared at by this person. This feeling didn't make Naruto feel strange or uncomfortable. On the contrary, it was very peaceful, as if he had met a very close person. This kind of intimacy from the heart couldn't be faked. Yo, Nine Tails boy, what are you doing? Our situation is very urgent. Master your power, and we will go to the battlefield. Oh, yet Killer Bee, the Hachibi Column Force, saw that Naruto was in a daze, so he walked to the side of Naruto and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He wanted to remind Naruto that they didn't have enough time. Naruto was patted by Killer Bee, and his whole body trembled involuntarily, like a person who fell into a half-awake state. After Naruto's body trembled, he also recovered from the shock. He looked at the wall where the very clear mural he had been looking at just now. It turned into a wall made of stone bricks. As for the mural that Naruto felt very familiar just now, at this moment, it was completely gone. Although there were some doubts in his heart, Naruto knew that now was not the time for him to worry about this situation. Looking at Killer Bee standing opposite him, Naruto nodded and said to Killer Bee, "You're right. Let's go." "You are right. The current ninja world needs our strength. Now is not the time to worry about some trivial things. What are we going to do next?" Seeing that Naruto was serious, Killer Bee also began to explain to Naruto the role of this ruin. Because of their willingness to be sealed, in fact, most of the tailed beasts are very irritable. Few tailed beasts can recover their calm attitude and communicate effectively with column force. But to fully master the power of the tailed beast in his body, the most important thing is to get the approval of the tailed beast in his body. In this lookout, there is a small space attached to it. In this space, the spiritual power of the tailed beast will be independent and coexist with a ninja as column force. The two sides can fight and communicate. If they fight, then one side will completely occupy the spiritual power of the other side. If they communicate, then it is the first step to fully master the power of the tailed beast in their body. Hey, Nine Tails boy, you have to lift the seal when you get the power. Enter this space, open your seal, meet the powerful Nine Tails, and become the strongest column force. Oh yeah, with that, Killer Bee stretched out his hand and pointed out the path leading to the small space for Naruto. It was a relief wall that looked quite complete. Chapter 564. Understanding Killer Bee's meaning. Naruto nodded to Killer Bee and slowly walked to the front of the relief sculpture. Although Killer Bee didn't say it very clearly, once it involves spiritual confrontation, it is definitely extremely dangerous. But in order to master the power of the tailed beast in his body, such a risk must be faced. Naruto put his thumb in his mouth and bit his thumb. The blood oozing from the thumb was directly wiped on his palm by Naruto. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a ninjutsu was quickly completed in Naruto's hand. Summoning jutsu, Naruto pressed his hand on the ground, and with the infusion of chakra, a cloud of smoke also rose from the place where his palm was pressed. The smoke dissipated, and a toad that looked quite strange appeared in front of Naruto. The head and body of this toad were very normal, but its neck was extremely long. A 1-meter-long scroll appeared directly between the toad's head and body. Is this the child of Watergate? The toad saw Naruto's figure the moment it appeared. The conspicuous golden hair and blue eyes quickly let the scroll toad recognize Naruto's identity. Sorry to trouble you. Looking at the scroll toad, Naruto didn't say much and directly said to the toad. The scroll toad also looked at Naruto with a dignified look, but it still nodded to Naruto. The scroll toad was very clear that it was the key to open the seal of the 9 tails on Naruto's body. When Naruto summoned it, it knew that Naruto was ready. It turned its body, and the huge scroll unfolded almost instantly. The moment the scroll was opened, the runes engraved on the scroll seemed to have gained a life of their own as they kept surging. When the scroll was fully unfolded, all the runes engraved inside the scroll seemed to have lost their final control and directly rushed out of the scroll one by one. When Naruto saw these runes rushing towards him, he also lifted his clothes, revealing the mysterious seal on his abdomen. When Naruto exposed his abdomen to the air, the runes seemed to have found their target and rushed towards the seal on Naruto's abdomen. When the runes came into contact with Naruto's abdomen, they immediately integrated into Naruto's body. The seal on Naruto's abdomen also began to slowly change as the runes integrated into it. Although the general shape did not change much, it was obvious that the seal was no longer as calm as before. When all the runes integrated into the black seal, a faint red light began to appear on the surface of the seal. This red light was full of a violent feeling. Even though it had a complete tacit understanding with the Hachibi, when it carefully sensed the seal on Naruto's abdomen, it could not help but feel that a wild beast was staring at it with its eyes full of bestiality. The sense of crisis that came from the depths of its soul made Killer Bee involuntarily use the Hachibi's chakra in its body to resist. When it did not use the Hachibi's chakra, although it could feel some pressure, it was still barely able to withstand it. But when it used the Hachibi's chakra in its body, the power that was originally instinctively releasing its aura seemed to have found its target at this moment. It began to release its powerful aura towards Killer Bee with hostility. This feeling, it's really that stinky fox. After sensing this aura, the Hachibi that had been sleeping in Column Force's body also woke up from its slumber. Soon, Hachibi also noticed that his Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, was under the pressure of Kyuubi's killing intent, so he hurriedly said to Killer B, "Kill him. B, withdraw my chakra. Ninetales, and I have always been in a competitive relationship. He doesn't accept me, and I don't accept him. Originally, he was only releasing his aura instinctively, but when you started to use my chakra, he could also feel my aura. Facing his old enemy, no matter what state he is in, he will definitely do his best to show his strength." Hearing the words of the Hachibi in his body, Killer B also immediately withdrew the chakra from his body. Sure enough, when Killer B completely converged the Bijou chakra in his body, the pressure that was originally exerted on his body disappeared as if it had lost its target. Killer B finally had a chance to observe Naruto's state at the moment. When the chakra in his body was no longer tightly guarded by the seal on his body, the originally very violent Nine-Tails chakra surged wildly in his body like a runaway horse. Naruto immediately began to use the method of controlling the chakra that his mother taught him. Relying on his huge chakra, he began to integrate his chakra into the Nine-Tails chakra at all costs. Gradually, a little bit of the Nine-Tails chakra began to be controlled by Naruto. Using the strand of Nine-Tails chakra as a primer, Naruto began to slowly straighten out the violent chakra in his body. And because of the violent increase of the Nine-Tails chakra in his body, Naruto's figure also became the same as when he mobilized the Nine-Tails chakra. His blue pupils turned scarlet and his teeth became wild. But at this moment, Naruto's eyes were very clear. Obviously, he was not affected by the chakra in his body too much. Looking at Naruto's state at the moment, Killer B, who was originally not so confident in his heart, couldn't help but feel a little confident in his heart. After all, at this moment, Naruto did not enter the small space that suppressed the tailed beast to a certain extent, but he could control the violent chakra in his body with his own ability. So once Naruto entered this small space, with the help of the space, Naruto still had a great chance to extract the power of the tailed beast in his body and control the Nine-Tails chakra. Chapter 565. Ignoring Killer B's gaze, Naruto walked towards the relief sculpture in front of him step by step. At this moment, there was an uncontrollable desire in Naruto's heart for no reason. It was a desire for power, but also a desire for freedom. Naruto didn't know whether such an emotion came from his own heart, but such a desire was so hard to suppress. He slowly pressed his hand on the relief sculpture, and a strange power fluctuation emerged from the relief sculpture. The power fluctuation penetrated into Naruto's body the moment it was produced. Naruto felt that every cell in his body was resonating in a strange way under the influence of this power fluctuation. Naruto felt like he was suddenly drenched from head to toe with cold spring water during the dog days of summer. The strange sense of comfort, the sense of freedom from the shackles, made Naruto's whole body relax involuntarily. At the moment when Naruto involuntarily relaxed under the influence of the power fluctuation, a gravitational force suddenly appeared from the relief sculpture. After Naruto's relaxed body received this gravitational force, he immediately rushed in the direction of the relief sculpture. At this moment, the relief sculpture seemed to become illusory. Naruto's hand, which was originally pressed on it, slowly melted into it. After a while, Naruto's entire body had entered the relief sculpture. Seeing that Naruto had entered the relief sculpture, Killer B also nodded slowly and sat where he was originally standing. All he could do now was to patiently wait for the result of the game between Naruto and Nine-Tails. He had already done everything he could to help Naruto on the way here. Now, all he had to rely on was Naruto's own ability and luck. When Naruto entered this small space, he had completely lost consciousness. Naruto's body slowly floated in the nothingness space, and the energy with the ancient breath also slowly rushed into Naruto's body. This energy with ancient aura rushed toward Naruto's head as soon as it entered his body. This aura was the same as the one that helped Sasuke release Kodo Amatsukami after he was controlled by Kodo Amatsukami. As the energy continued to gather towards Naruto's head, Naruto's spirit was finally completely immersed in his own spiritual space. This was a very familiar scene, a place that was quite like a sewer, exuding a cold and damp, rotten smell. Naruto has been to this place more than once because this was the place where Nine Tails was sealed. But unlike before, the water that could only reach his ankles had now directly submerged Naruto's shoulders. At this moment, Naruto was very clear about where he wanted to go. He controlled his body to slowly float up and instinctively moved his chakra to stand directly on the water, as usual. But unlike what Naruto imagined, he didn't stand on the water as usual. Instead, after treading on the water for a while, he fell into the water again. It seems that I can't use my treading technique here. Naruto quickly realized the reason why he couldn't tread on the water, but he wasn't discouraged. He directly used his arms to paddle the water and swam towards the place where Nine Tails was sealed. Soon, a very tall iron gate appeared in front of Naruto. The iron gate, which was originally densely covered with talismans, was now only left with the last and largest talisman. Kyuubi seemed to have sensed Naruto's aura, or perhaps because the powerful seal binding him became weak. The moment he sensed Naruto's aura, Kyuubi behind the iron gate roared. At the same time, Nine Tails' huge head also appeared in front of Naruto. The flame-like gorgeous fur, scarlet beast eyes, and huge mouth all showed Naruto how dangerous it was standing in front of him. Nine Tails stared at Naruto in front of it. Its violent chakra overflowed from behind the iron gate. Like a red bubble, it quickly expelled all the sewage that was originally filled with sewage at this moment. The red bubble had almost covered the entire space of the sewer in an instant. A large part of Naruto's body was also covered by the red bubbles. The red bubbles were the manifestation of Nine Tails' chakra. So just like Nine Tails' chakra, it gave Naruto a strong burning sensation. It wasn't just the burning sensation. At this moment, Naruto's spirit was also bewitched by Nine Tails to a certain extent. The voice of Nine Tails kept appearing in Naruto's mind. Uncover it. Uncover this talisman. Uncover this talisman, and you will obtain endless power. Uncover this talisman, and you will defeat all your enemies. Uncover this talisman, and the difficulties surrounding your heart will be solved. Nine Tails' bewitching voice kept ringing in Naruto's mind, but Naruto's eyes were exceptionally clear. Naruto's mouth seemed to be chanting something. Every time Naruto finished a sentence, the Nine Tails chakra that wrapped around Naruto faded a little. This was the chant that Shina Kushina taught Naruto after learning that the Nine Tails in Naruto's body had gone out of control. Although it couldn't completely suppress Nine Tails, this chant could protect the spirit of the person chanting it. If it were any other time, Naruto, who had recovered, would never get close to the Nine Tails seal. But now, Naruto came here to open the Nine Tails seal so that he could control the power of the Nine Tails. So Naruto still slowly walked towards the place where the seal talisman was located. Nine Tails could naturally feel that its bewitching didn't work, but when it saw Naruto walking towards it step by step, the pursuit of freedom still drove Nine Tails to slowly shape the chakra that it had released. Steps made of red foam appeared in front of Naruto, but Naruto wasn't afraid at all. Like a determined warrior about to charge in a battle, he walked up the steps step by step. Finally, Naruto's figure had appeared in front of the seal talisman, and even a small corner of the huge seal talisman was uncovered. Nine Tails, who had been staring fiercely at Naruto, couldn't help but have some desire for freedom in its violent eyes. The seal was lifted. Chapter 566. Taking off the remaining talisman, the iron gate that sealed Nine Tails finally appeared in front of Naruto. In the position that was originally covered by the talisman, there was a round thing that looked like a door lock. Looking at this strangely shaped door lock, Naruto slowly looked at Nine Tails in the gate. Although the moment he noticed that Naruto was looking at him, Nine Tails restrained all the desire for freedom in his eyes, but Naruto could still see a trace of desire in Nine Tails' eyes. Who doesn't desire freedom? Even an unintelligent bird would instinctively fly towards the nearest tree the moment it was released from its cage, let alone a tailed beast that had intelligence in its body. Speaking of which, what did the tailed beasts do wrong? They were sealed by human beings for most of the time. Just because their power was too great, just because human beings coveted their great power, the tailed beasts had to lose their most important freedom. Without freedom, they would rather die. For every person with intelligence, or even a thinking life, freedom is the most precious thing. Did the tailed beasts really have such a strong hostility to human beings at the beginning of their birth? Did the tailed beasts really like to slaughter living creatures? Naruto didn't know. Even many people who were proficient in the history of the shinobi world, and even myths didn't know. All they could know was the story of the tailed beasts slaughtering the human world in the short hundreds of thousands of years. Naruto didn't know why, but there was a kind of pity in his heart when he looked at Nine Tails. Although he was threatened by Nine Tails more than once, and even when he used Nine Tails chakra, he went berserk again and again. The tragedy of his childhood was even because of such a powerful tailed beast sealed in his body. It is undeniable that there was a time when Naruto resented the existence of such a creature in his body. But with the growth of age and the improvement of experience, Naruto found that he didn't hate the tailed beast so much. The reason why he became the Column Force wasn't because of the tailed beast's will. So who else can he hate? The one who sealed the tailed beast in his body was his father, the masked man who released the tailed beast from his mother's body. After thinking about it for a while, Naruto was surprised to find that he couldn't treat anyone with resentment, because all of this seemed to be a script arranged by a pair of invisible hands. Everything appeared so just right and unexpected. So gradually, Naruto learned to accept his identity as the Column Force, and accept the fact that he couldn't resist the fact that it had happened to him. Although the Nine Tails is a tailed beast, it is also an animal. Perhaps due to its animal instincts, the Nine Tails could still sense human emotions. Moreover, the current Naruto almost didn't conceal the pity and grief in his eyes at all. In a trance, the Nine Tails even felt that Naruto's figure had quietly changed, turning into the extraordinary figure that stood in front of it like a god when it was still a child. It shook its head with all its might, expelling this ridiculous thought from its mind. Now isn't the time to think about such nonsense. Unlocking the seal and regaining my freedom is the most important thing. Naruto withdrew his gaze and looked at the door lock in front of him. Naruto stretched out his right hand in front of him and slowly opened his palm. There was obviously no fluctuation of chakra, but black runes suddenly drilled out from Naruto's palm. Black runes constantly condensed in Naruto's palm. If one observed carefully, it wouldn't be difficult to notice that these black runes that constantly appeared in Naruto's hand were the runes that rushed into Naruto's body from the Scroll Toad. The black runes constantly appeared in Naruto's palm. The black runes were like pieces of building blocks that constantly pieced together in Naruto's hand to form a shape. Finally, when the last rune was integrated into such a building block, a black object that looked a bit strange but was obviously a key appeared in Naruto's hand. Nine Tails. Naruto looked at the strange black key in his hand and cast his gaze at Nine Tails in the Iron Gate. I don't know what kind of mood I should have to face you now, but whether it is my heart or the current situation of the shinobi world, I have to choose to unlock your seal. You have been in my body all this time, so you should also know what is happening in the shinobi world through me. If Akatsuki wants to resurrect the Jubi, all 9 of you will be pulled out. Although I don't know if you're really pulled out, not only will I lose my life because of the Jubi, but you will also be able to maintain your independence while after being integrated into the Jubi. I'm not threatening you. I'm just stating such a fact to you objectively. Although I'm a little ashamed, I really don't want to lose my life like this, and I don't want the shinobi world to be shrouded in the void of Tsukimi space by Akatsuki. So, now, I will unlock the last layer of the seal for you, and I will give you the choice of everything. In the end, you will fight side by side with me, or both of us will suffer. I will leave it all to you. It has to be said that after being in contact with Watergate for so long, Naruto has become eloquent. Just like the tone used by Watergate to persuade others, there are not so many empty reasons, but objectively stating one fact after another and providing a win-win choice for the other party. Ignoring the expression of Ninetales, who was obviously lost in thought, Naruto directly inserted the black key in his hand into the gate, and with the sound of the mechanism, the gate representing the last layer of the seal was finally opened. Almost in a blink of an eye, the dark sewer began to fade away like a painting that had been washed. When everything disappeared, Naruto and Ninetales all appeared in a seemingly endless white space. Naruto finally saw the full appearance of Ninetales this time. The huge figure with red fur and the swaying Ninetales behind him made Naruto feel the irrepressible, powerful aura and elegant posture of Ninetales. Chapter 567. After staying in the cage for a long time, he returned to nature. Although this sentence can't completely describe the mood of Ninetales at this moment, it's not far from it. At this moment, Ninetales doesn't know if it's because of freedom or some other reason, but he's not as violent and aggressive as he was when he was sealed in Naruto's body. Human, looking at Naruto in front of him, Ninetales slowly said to Naruto, "I have to say, what you said just now really moved me. You are very smart, and you have already grasped what I desire the most at the moment you decided to negotiate with me." Freedom, what a tempting word. In front of Naruto, Ninetales didn't hide his desire for freedom at this moment. After hearing the words of Ninetales, Naruto's heart also slowly relaxed a little, because since Ninetales can say such a thing, it at least proves one point. That is, there is a certain possibility of reaching a consensus with Ninetales. So what is your decision? Looking at Ninetales, Naruto said to him, "Although I'm suppressed to a certain extent due to the seal in your body, I still have a certain level of perception towards the outside world. Of course, I understand how dangerous the outside world is, but you have ignored a very important point." Kyuubi's pair of beast eyes stared at Naruto, with a hint of contempt in his eyes. "Humph. I myself have strength beyond most people in the shinobi world. Even if I leave you, I can survive in the shinobi world with my strength. Don't think that because so many column force were captured, that the ability of a bijou is limited. The power of each bijou is beyond the reach of human beings. The reason why so many column force were captured is because the seal on the bijou suppressed a certain amount of power. If a bijou really breaks free from the restriction of the seal, then no matter who wants to capture us, they will have to pay a great price. But unlike us, you're a column force. Once you lose the source of power like us, your strength will be greatly reduced. So the reality is, you need me, but I don't need you." Although Naruto has no way to verify what Ninetales said, the strong confidence exuded from Ninetales made Naruto believe the truth of what Ninetales said. Because as Ninetales said, if Ninetales devours his spirit and reappear in the shinobi world with his body, as long as he goes through an extremely short recovery period, Ninetales can recover his strength with his almost endless chakra. And if he can't obtain the power of Ninetales, then he really can't protect himself. Boy, you're lucky. I've been staying in your body for a long time, and to a certain extent, I've watched you grow up. Although you don't seem so smart most of the time, and sometimes you're simply a model of one-track mind. But whether it's the toughness in your body that ordinary people don't have, or the faint aura that I feel unexpectedly familiar with, it's all affecting me, making me want to give you a chance." Ninetales, who was half lying on the ground, suddenly straightened up and said to Naruto with a serious look in his eyes, "I will use my power and the power of this small world to condense a clone with the same ability as you. This is the opportunity I'm giving you. Do your best to defeat him. I will completely open a part of my power to you, so that you will have a powerful strength that you have never had before. Do you agree with this proposal?" Although Ninetales seemed to be asking for Naruto's opinion, Ninetales' chakra, which was as majestic as the vast ocean, rushed out of his body. In the chaotic world where Naruto's body was floating, a transparent golden energy with a somewhat ancient aura rushed directly into Naruto's spiritual world and mixed with Ninetales' power. The two powers entangled and influenced each other, and a figure was gradually molded by the two powers. With the continuous infusion of the Kyuubi's chakra and the golden energy constantly exerting its power, this figure, which originally looked quite illusory, has become solid at this moment. The figure gradually turned into Naruto's appearance, but unlike Naruto, the clone created by Ninetales looked like it was shrouded in a layer of black gauze, and the whole figure looked a little gray. Naruto's golden hair and yellow skin have become gray at this moment, and Naruto's blue eyes directly turned into Kyuubi's eyes. The same aura as Ninetales drifted out of the clone, bloodthirsty and violent. The clone stood opposite Naruto, as if it was born for battle. Naruto did not answer Ninetales' question with his mouth, but directly told Ninetales with his actions that he accepted such a trial. Naruto skillfully summoned a shadow clone. With the help of the shadow clone, a sphere condensed from chakra appeared in his hand, Futon Rasengan. The shadow clone disappeared automatically, and Naruto dragged the Rasengan in his hand and controlled his chakra to rush towards his leg. Naruto's physical fitness was very outstanding, and at this moment, under the stimulation of chakra, it became extremely powerful. And this strength was naturally reflected in Naruto's speed at this moment. It was almost impossible to see with the naked eye. Naruto appeared beside Ninetales' clone. During this whole process, Ninetales' clone did not move at all. Although Naruto didn't quite understand what was going on with this Ninetales' clone, Naruto knew that as long as the Rasengan in his hand can hit Ninetales' clone, then he will have a great advantage in the following battle. So Naruto did not hesitate to press the Rasengan in his hand on Ninetales' clone. Seeing the Rasengan in his hand getting closer and closer to Ninetales' clone, Naruto's eyes couldn't help but carry the joy of a successful attack. As the Rasengan got closer and closer to Ninetales' clone, a thick layer of dark red mist suddenly appeared on Ninetales' clone. At this moment, Naruto's speed was already very fast, but Ninetales' clone was obviously better. The palm wrapped in dark red mist directly grabbed Naruto's wrist that was holding the Rasengan, and with a slight force in his hand, the dark red mist also invaded Naruto's wrist under the guidance of Ninetales' clone, cutting off the chakra supply for Naruto's Rasengan. Pop like a bubble bursting, the Rasengan with powerful destructive power dissipated directly in the air at this moment. Chapter 568. Although it seems that the power used by the Ninetales clone is not the same as his own power, Naruto can feel that although the characteristics shown are not so similar, the dark red mist that constantly wrapped around the body of the Ninetales clone is actually an energy that is extremely similar to chakra. Ninetales is right. Although this Ninetales clone is different from him in many aspects, his energy level and physical fitness are the same as his. After calming down, Naruto finally understood that when he rushed towards the Ninetales clone just now, the Ninetales clone was not unresponsive, but it has been observing his attack route, and then it completely predicted all of his attacks. It was obvious that the Ninetales clone's speed was slightly slower because of the lack of inertia, but it grabbed his wrist very accurately. Relying on the huge advantage of chakra, it injected a lot of chakra into his wrist, directly blocking the meridians of his wrist, making his Rasengan ineffective. Naruto never thought that he could make the enemy's ninjutsu ineffective in this way. And such a thing is actually done by someone who has the same physical fitness and energy level as himself. Slightly frowning his brows, Naruto looked at the Ninetales clone that grabbed his wrist and directly exerted force on his feet. Using his wrist as a fulcrum, Naruto directly leaped up. Naruto's body directly leaped over the Ninetales clone's body like a flying fish. At this moment, Naruto is using the strength of his whole body to pull the Ninetales clone's arm. The same physical fitness makes the Ninetales clone unable to completely resist such a pull. After realizing that if he continues to be pulled like this, then he will definitely lose his balance due to Naruto's pull. Almost instantly weighing the pros and cons, the Ninetales clone directly let go of his hand that was holding Naruto, wanted to make Naruto's pull ineffective, but at this moment, Naruto directly turned his wrist from the controlled one to the controller. The Ninetales clone saw that his wrist was directly held by Naruto and immediately understood Naruto's intention. Naruto wants to use this method to fight for a little advantage in the battle later. In such an evenly matched battle, once one person makes a mistake, it may lead to a complete loss. Now that Naruto has fallen into a certain disadvantage because of the attack just now, Naruto now hopes to use this move to directly erase his disadvantage and even directly reverse the situation. After the Ninetales clone noticed Naruto's intention, not only did he not want to break free from Naruto's control, but he directly exerted force in the opposite direction of Naruto's force. Ka! Although the battle was very fierce, a crisp sound appeared directly on the battlefield, making it difficult to ignore. At this moment, the Ninetales clone's arm that was grabbed by Naruto's backhand was at a strange angle. Obviously, in order to break free from Naruto's control, the Ninetales clone directly dislocated his arm with Naruto's power. Although it was such a huge price to pay, the effect was naturally very outstanding. Regardless of his dislocated arm, the Ninetales clone used his strange dark red chakra to condense a dark red Rasengan in his hand. Although one of his arms was grabbed by Naruto, the Ninetales clone still turned around and directly pressed the Rasengan in his hand towards Naruto's body. He must not let himself be hit by such an attack. Rasengan itself is one of the ninjutsu that Naruto is very proficient in, so he is naturally very clear about the power of Rasengan. It is precisely because of this that Naruto knows that he must not completely withstand such an attack. Otherwise, no matter how hard he struggles in the battle after that, failure will become inevitable. Naruto directly released his hand that was tightly holding the Ninetales clone's wrist. Then he stepped hard on the ground, and his whole body flew backward. However, the Ninetales clone did not give up the attack because of this. The dark red Rasengan that could only be held in his hand suddenly flew out from the hand of the Ninetales clone at this moment. The Rasengan attacked Naruto directly. Naruto was very surprised when he saw that the Rasengan could directly fly out of his hand. It was precisely because of this surprise that Naruto injected more chakra into his leg, and his speed soared again. Carefully observing the Rasengan that was flying towards him, Naruto found that there was a faint, almost imperceptible dark red thread between the dark red Rasengan and the palm of the Ninetales clone at this moment. This is a technique that is often used to control puppets and ninjutsu, that is, chakra thread. Whether it is Tien Wood Leaf, who is good at controlling ninjutsu, or Kankuro, who Naruto is more familiar with in Sunagakure, they have used chakra thread in front of Naruto more than once. Now the Ninetales clone is obviously using his chakra control ability that is far beyond Naruto's original body to directly create such a chakra thread to continuously inject chakra into the dark red Rasengan that was separated from his hand. But after all, Rasengan is not a simple ninjutsu. It requires fine control of chakra. Even the Ninetales clone at this moment does not have the ability to completely maintain the power of Rasengan through chakra thread. So at this moment, the Rasengan flying towards Naruto actually weakened with the increase of distance and the passage of time. Whether in terms of size or aura, it is obviously weakened by more than a little bit. Looking at the dark red Rasengan constantly shrinking, Naruto's heart began to constantly estimate the power of the dark red Rasengan cast by the Ninetales clone. Finally, when the Rasengan was worn down to the size of a ping-pong ball, Naruto directly punched the Rasengan with his hand covered with chakra. Bang! A loud noise was directly produced at the moment when Naruto's fist touched the Rasengan, and the huge airwave even lifted the clothes worn by the Ninetales clone, standing a little far away. At this moment, the expression on the face of the Ninetales clone was no longer the stupefied expression when he first appeared. Instead, there was a bit of indifference and playfulness, which looked very strange. A mocking smile hung on the corner of the Nine-Tails clone's mouth. The eyes of the Nine-Tails clone just stared at the storm that appeared because of the explosion of the Rasengan. Nine-Tails, who has been watching coldly from the side, also looked at the clone created by the energy in this space with a strange look. Although he can still control the existence of this clone at will, it is obvious that this clone is no longer completely under his control at this moment. Chapter 569. Using a clone that isn't completely under his control to test Naruto is a good choice. The most important thing is that the aura coming from this clone makes it difficult for Nine-Tails to arouse any hostility in his heart. In this case, Nine-Tails naturally used a laissez-faire attitude towards his clone. The chaotic storm finally subsided, and Naruto, who was in the center of the storm, naturally reappeared. The clothes worn on Naruto's body were slightly tattered, and many places on Naruto's body had large and small holes because of the destruction of the sharp wind blades in the storm group. At this moment, Naruto's eyes were no longer so clear, and his eyes were filled with a sense of violence at the moment. His originally blue eyes were also quietly covered with a layer of scarlet light. The wounds on Naruto's body began to heal quickly at this moment, and there was even a faint smoke rising near the wounds. Looking at Naruto's rapidly healing body, Nine-Tails couldn't help but show a touch of surprise in his eyes. He originally thought that this was just a simple spiritual space, but he didn't expect that Naruto could actually use his extraordinary recovery ability. The Uzumaki clan itself has chakra capacity and recovery ability that ordinary ninjas can't reach, and Naruto, as the Nine-Tails column force, has used the chakra of Nine-Tails a lot over the years, so Naruto's body has also undergone a certain degree of change under the long-term use of chakra by Nine-Tails. The most intuitive thing is Naruto's extraordinary recovery ability. Even Nine-Tails didn't expect that Naruto's body could accommodate his weak chakra and burst it out at this moment. Seeing Naruto's state, Nine-Tails' clone, who had a subtle smile on his face, also quickly restrained all the expressions on his face, as cold and indifferent as when he first appeared. Don't know if it's because the Nine-Tails chakra in his body broke out, or because the injury just now stimulated Naruto's thinking. At this moment, Naruto seems to have entered a violent state. A simple seal appeared in his hand, and clouds of smoke rose from Naruto's side. Ninjutsu, multiple shadow, clone jutsu. Almost roaring, Naruto shouted the name of the ninjutsu he used at the moment. At this moment, Naruto didn't have a trace of the Nine-Tails clone just now. At this moment, Naruto seems to have fallen into a strange state. At this moment, Naruto is more like a beast than a human. Roar, roar, roar. As the clouds of smoke dispersed, clones with the same red eyes appeared beside Naruto. Dozens of clones shouted together, roaring together, like tigers roaring in the forest, full of a beast's ferocity. This kid, looking at Naruto, Nine-Tails' eyes flashed with a trace of appreciation. Perhaps from the appearance, Naruto has completely lost his mind at this moment. But Nine-Tails knows that although the chakra contained in Naruto's body can help Naruto quickly recover his injuries, but that's it. If such a small amount of chakra could completely affect Naruto's mind, Nine-Tails would have rushed out of such a seal long ago. How strong Naruto's mind is, perhaps only Nine-Tails hidden in Naruto's body can understand better. So the current state of Naruto is actually the result of Naruto's deliberate guidance. Using the Nine-Tails chakra in his body as a primer, he directly released all the beastly nature in his body, using his most violent and most reckless attack to tear all the enemies standing in front of him to shreds. At this moment, hundreds of shadow clones in Naruto's original body all ran wildly towards Nine-Tails' clone. The shadow clones in Naruto's original body were like beasts at this moment, running on all fours towards Nine-Tails' clone. At this moment, Naruto's state was very physical. Although his body was completely following his instincts, Naruto's consciousness seemed to be stripped of all thoughts and emotions at this moment. He was like a machine that coldly analyzed all the information in the battle. Judging from the situation just now, Ninetales' clone's ability to control chakra was obviously above his own. In this case, if he were to widen the distance between himself and Ninetales' clone and enter a long-range battle, he would undoubtedly fall into a disadvantage. After comprehensive analysis, Naruto was surprised to find that the only place where he could see a chance of winning against Ninetales' clone was in close combat. After all, his physical fitness was similar to that of Ninetales' clone. Although close combat skills are very important, in the final analysis, it still depends on the will of both sides. If it's a competition of will, Naruto believes that he will never lose to such a cold, puppet-like guy. Naruto and his shadow clones quickly approached Ninetales' clone. Under the control of Naruto and the deliberate influence of the beastly nature of the shadow clones, almost all the parts of their body that could cause damage to the enemy were used to attack Ninetales' clone. Ninetales' clone didn't use shadow clones to deal with it like Naruto did. Instead, he stood in the same place without using any ninjutsu and directly took a defensive posture. Looking at the shadow clones that attacked him fiercely, Ninetales' clone didn't show any nervous expression. His eyes and face were still full of indifference as before. In an understatement, Ninetales' clone waved his arms and directly broke the shadow clones that attacked him one by one. Although the Ninetailed clone's movements weren't that fast, there was no way to dodge the Ninetailed clone's every move. That kind of feeling was vaguely similar to when Xianxia once showed his strength in front of Naruto. He couldn't avoid it at all. The waving arms were like heavy hammers, attacking Naruto's shadow clones one after another. Originally, Naruto hoped to use his shadow clones to consume a lot of stamina of Ninetales' clone, but if all his shadow clones were consumed here, it would be too much of a loss. Chapter 570. Watching his clones being destroyed one by one, Naruto also felt the pain from the attacks on his clones. Enduring the continuous pain, the madness hidden in Naruto's eyes became clearer and clearer. As the madness became stronger and stronger, the attacks of the remaining shadow clones and Naruto's true body became more and more relentless. With the strengthening of Naruto and his shadow clone jutsu's attacks, Kyuubi's clone jutsu gradually felt some pressure. The appearance of defeating Naruto's clones with ease had been broken. On the contrary, Naruto's clones would occasionally receive a few attacks from them. Although madness in battle might not necessarily allow one to win the battle, such madness was enough to make the enemy feel difficult to deal with. Seeing that their attacks were effective, Naruto and his clones were also excited. The opportunity to win seemed to have appeared in front of Naruto at that moment. As long as he could continue to fight like this, Naruto felt that he had a chance of winning. Realizing that he had fallen into a certain disadvantage, Ninetales' clone's eyes suddenly flashed with a golden light. This ray of light was like the finishing touch. After it appeared, the nine-tailed avatar seemed to come alive. And the moment this golden light appeared, the connection between Ninetales and this clone was completely cut off. And the moment the connection was cut off, Ninetales finally felt a familiar aura from the clone. Although a long time had passed, the moment this aura appeared, a thin layer of mist uncontrollably appeared in Ninetailed Beast's eyes. "Old man of the Six Paths?" Ninetales murmured softly, his eyes revealing endless recollections. If Ninetales had to choose the happiest time of his life, it would be the time when he was still young and under the protection of the Six Paths, where he didn't have to worry about life and death and only had to play freely. "I can't go back. No matter what, I can't go back to those days." Ninetales' eyes were filled with reminiscence, but more than that, there was a sadness that couldn't be erased. Ninetales, a slightly old voice, suddenly appeared in Ninetales' mind. Hearing the name that he hadn't heard for a long time, Ninetales' expression couldn't help but become absent-minded. Faintly, Naruto, who was fighting Kyuubi's clone in front of him, and the white, boundless space disappeared at this moment. A figure with white hair, White clothes and many wrinkles on his cheeks and eyes that revealed endless wisdom suddenly appeared before Ninetails. Old man of the Six Paths, you didn't die. Yes, the person who appeared in front of Ninetails and called out Ninetails' name is Six Paths Sannin, known as the ancestor of the shinobi world. Hearing Ninetails' exclamation, Six Paths Sannin's face revealed a helpless smile. Slowly shaking his head, his half-opened eyes flashed with a deep glint as he said to Ninetails, "Don't worry, I'm not going to let you go. Ninetails, I've been dead for many years. Now I'm just a remnant of my will that I forcibly left behind before I left the world. If it wasn't related to the future of the shinobi world, I would never appear. This time, I appeared in front of you for the blonde boy that is being created by you and me." When Ninetails heard Six Paths Sannin's words and knew that Six Paths Sannin appeared for Naruto, not only did he not have any doubts in his eyes, but he also understood. A strong physique, an amazing amount of chakra, an optimistic and fearless attitude, and more importantly, a familiar aura that has been faintly emitting from his body. Is this human really related to you? Sure enough, Ninetails wasn't unaware. Among the Ninetails can be said to be the most arrogant one. After the baptism of time, this kind of arrogance has not faded, and it has become more and more obvious. It has developed into a kind of arrogance that can be called arrogance. For all people weaker than himself, Ninetails doesn't put him in his eyes. Although Naruto's performance has been good, this alone is not enough for Ninetails to give Naruto so many opportunities. He is the reincarnation of Azura's child. Hearing Ninetails' question and seeing Ninetails' slightly determined eyes, Six Paths Sannin knew that he can't deliberately avoid this question. And although this is considered a secret, it's not a secret for Ninetails who has survived from ancient times to the present. You must already know the current situation of the shinobi world, right? In the darkness, there's a force stirring the wind and clouds. In this unprecedented fourth shinobi world war, I predict that there will be a person full of ambition who will summon the Jubi that I have sealed. In ancient times, the ten-tailed beast turned countless people into puppet-like existences without consciousness. That scene is still vivid in my mind, and every life is worth protecting. So I hope you can help this child calm the turmoil in the shinobi world and do your best to prevent the Jubi's resurrection. I'm just a remnant of my will now, and there's very little I can do. And from what I've observed, the two children, Azura and Indra, in this life, didn't fall into a completely opposite situation like the countless previous reincarnations. In this life, between Azura and Indra, a powerful bond has miraculously appeared. When Azura and Indra truly unite, they will be able to create an unprecedented miracle. Looking at the hopeful look in Six Paths Sannin's eyes, Ninetails was speechless. Ninetails has seen Azura and Indra's first reincarnation with his own eyes. They are two powerful ninjas who are comparable to, or even stronger than him. But in the current Ninetails view, these two people have a huge flaw in their temperament. Even if Azura and Indra appear in the shinobi world, they may not be able to stop the nine-tailed beasts from gathering together to form the Jubi. Not to mention the current Azura and Indra who have experienced countless reincarnations, and even their memories from ancient times have begun to become blurred. Chapter 571. For some reason, although Ninetails could feel a familiar aura from the Sage of the Six Paths, he still felt a sense of vigilance. But in Kyuubi's heart, he couldn't help but feel a sense of vigilance. It seemed that the Rikudo Sannin who gave him life, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, wasn't someone he could completely rely on and could even harm him. This feeling was inexplicable, but Nine-Tailed Fox believed it without a doubt. Compared to what she saw and heard, Kyuubi believed more in her intuition that there was no need to doubt. Sage of the Six Paths, what do you need me to do? Looking at the Sage of the Six Paths standing opposite him, Ninetails still asked the Sage of the Six Paths despite having a certain degree of vigilance. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to abide by the agreement between you and Naruto. The Sage of the Six Paths said to Nine Tails with some confidence. You've watched Naruto grow up since he was a child. I'm sure you know how much potential he has. With my blessing, this doppelganger's strength has even surpassed Naruto's own. I won't go easy on him in this matter. Nine Tails also believed that the Sage of the Six Paths would never go easy on him in this matter, because not only would it be an insult to Naruto, but it would also be an insult to himself. After taking a deep look at the Sage of the Six Paths, Nine Tails slowly nodded his head. After all, the Sage of the Six Paths' request did not conflict with his original intention. He even increased the difficulty for Naruto instead of reducing the difficulty for Naruto. In a trance, the Sage of the Six Paths in front of Nine Tails had completely disappeared at this moment. In front of Nine Tails was still the doppelganger and Naruto who were fighting. It was only a short period of absent-mindedness, but the current situation of the battle had completely changed. Nine Tails' doppelganger ruthlessly dislocated his arm to break free from Naruto's fighting rhythm. Although Nine Tails' doppelganger reattached his arm later, the dislocation still affected the fighting ability of the arm. After Naruto noticed this, he began to madly attack Nine Tails' doppelganger's arm that was not very flexible. At this moment, the battle between Nine Tails' doppelganger and Naruto was almost non-technical. They were just exchanging blows. Nine Tails' doppelganger's punch directly hit Naruto's cheek. After receiving the punch firmly, Naruto immediately stretched out his hand and grabbed Nine Tails' doppelganger's wrist that was attacking him. He immediately clenched his other hand and attacked Nine Tails' doppelganger's abdomen. The abdomen was the part of the human body that was most likely to feel pain. Naruto's punch directly made the expressionless Nine Tails' doppelganger's facial muscles twitch. Seeing this, Nine Tails had more or less understood the final outcome of this battle. Close combat tested one's willpower the most. When one's spirit and body became extremely tired, the only thing that could drive a person to continue fighting was a strong will. And compared to Naruto, who had always been fighting with high spirits, Nine Tails' doppelganger was really not worth mentioning. At the end of the day, Nine Tails' doppelganger was just a puppet-like existence created by mixing a trace of the Six Tao's power and Nine Tails' chakra. Looking at Naruto's bloody body, Nine Tails' eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of struggle. To be honest, Nine Tails really didn't think much of Naruto's current strength. If he really broke free from all the shackles, Nine Tails believed that he would definitely become stronger than Naruto. However, whether it was the words that the Six Tao Immortal said to him just now or the vague feeling he got from Naruto, they were all affecting Nine Tails, making Nine Tails feel that he was the most suitable choice to be with Naruto. Forget it. I'll hold back a little and let Naruto control part of my strength. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground sounded in Nine Tails' ears. Looking toward the sound, Nine Tails' doppelganger had been punched to the ground by Naruto. His body, which was already somewhat illusory, finally disappeared without a trace at this moment. Seeing that his enemy was finally defeated by him, Naruto suddenly couldn't bear the fatigue in his body and mind after experiencing such a battle with someone who was evenly matched and even slightly stronger than him. As the fatigue hit him, Naruto finally sat on the ground. But there was a bright smile on Naruto's face. At this moment, Naruto was undoubtedly happy, because in the battle with Nine Tails' doppelganger, Naruto actually learned a lot of tactics and fighting methods that he didn't think of before from Nine Tails' doppelganger. More importantly, after defeating the Nine Tails' doppelganger, it was equivalent to gaining the approval of Nine Tails. Am I finally going to break free from such a powerless state? Looking at the bright smile on Naruto's face and the glimmer of hope in his eyes, Nine Tails couldn't help but think of his childhood. The same ignorance, fearlessness, and recklessness. Nine Tails finally vaguely understood why he was so close to Naruto. To a large extent, Naruto was very similar to himself who hadn't experienced the hardships of time. It's precisely because he can no longer have this kind of mood. So Kyuubi actually faintly hopes that he can protect Naruto, so that Naruto can always maintain this kind of smile and hope. Naruto, who was sitting on the ground, seemed to be aware of Ninetales' slightly gentle gaze. The smile on his face became brighter, and he clenched his wounded hand that was still dripping blood into a fist and extended it towards Ninetales. Stinking brat. Looking at Naruto's appearance for the first time, Ninetales didn't call Naruto an ice-cold human. Instead, he affectionately called Naruto stinking brat. Do your best. Let's guard our future well. After saying this, Ninetales didn't care about Naruto's reaction. He suddenly opened his mouth. A blazing red chakra ball condensed in Ninetales' mouth, but Naruto didn't feel the slightest bit of hostility. The chakra ball that exuded a powerful aura rushed directly towards Naruto and wrapped Naruto in it. Chapter 572. Sitting in the ruins, Killer Bee, the Hachibi column force, was sitting cross-legged on the open space. In his hand, he was holding the ninja sword of Kisame, the member of Akatsuki that he killed before. Kisame is a very magical sword because it is not like an icicle and emotionless weapon, but more like a living creature. As the owner of the sword, he needs to inject his chakra into the Kisame to feed it, and even take time to communicate with it. At this moment, Killer Bee is using the majestic Bijou chakra in his body to feed the shark's muscles, constantly feeling the emotions of the shark's muscles, and constantly using his own chakra to wash the shark's muscles. The reason why Killer Bee is constantly using his chakra to cleanse the Kisame is because he found that there's a part of it that no matter how much power he mobilizes, there is no way to invade it. It is precisely because of this part of the Kisame that a kind of vigilance appeared in Killer Bee's heart. After all, the defeat of Ghost Mermaid and Ghost Mermaid was reasonable, but went way too smoothly. Just when Killer Bee was preparing to go deeper and even forcibly use his chakra to break through this part, a strong fluctuation suddenly appeared in the relief sculpture that entered the small space. Naruto or Ninetales? Hachibi, who was sealed in Killer Bee's body, felt the powerful pressure of the nine-tailed beast's aura from the relief sculpture almost instantly. However, Hachibi was not sure who had come out of the small space and was in charge of the situation at the moment. Killer Bee naturally knows what Hachibi is worried about at this moment. If Ninetales really invaded Naruto's body, with the hostility of Ninetales to mankind, the threat to the ninja world is not less than the Akatsuki organization that is waging war on the entire ninja world at this moment. The chakra in his body surged, and even the Hachibi chakra in his body was mobilized by Killer Bee. At this moment, a part of Killer Bee's body also showed the characteristics of Hachibi. The Kisame in Killer Bee's hand felt the powerful chakra coming from Killer Bee's body, and like a hungry shark, it constantly devoured the chakra that approached it. However, the chakra that the Kisame could devour was just a drop in the ocean compared to the chakra that was constantly emerging from Killer Bee's body, so Killer Bee didn't pay much attention to it. Finally, the powerful fluctuation from the relief sculpture finally stopped, and Killer Bee's hand holding the Kisame also became stronger. Naruto's body was wrapped in the golden chakra flame, and the flame condensed a pair of flaming ears with the characteristics of a fox on his head. Naruto has now entered the true Ninetales chakra mode. A powerful momentum came from Naruto's body, but Naruto has also noticed a strong burden on his body. This mode can't be used for too long, otherwise it will definitely endanger the foundation of his body. After checking his physical condition, Naruto also saw Killer Bee standing in front of him with a vigilant face. "Uncle B, don't be so nervous, it's me. I have reached an agreement with Ninetales. I can use the power of Ninetales without any hindrance." Naruto showed his signature smile to Killer Bee. Naruto's body was burning with a golden chakra flame. His bright smile combined with the golden flame burning on his body made him feel as bright as the sun. But suddenly, Naruto felt a kind of malice from the Kisame in Killer Bee's hand, as if piercing his heart. He instinctively mobilized the chakra in his body. A giant chakra hand appeared behind Naruto's back. Under Naruto's control, the giant chakra hand directly grabbed the barbed blade of the Kisame. The chakra flame burning on the giant hand seemed to have encountered gasoline at this moment. It spread directly from the giant chakra hand, and almost in a moment, it had already burned the entire skin of the shark. Killer Bee knew that Naruto would never harm him, so he immediately let go of the Kisame and let it fall directly to the ground. Yo, Naruto boy has become stronger. The Kisame is very strange. You and I will work together to discover the mystery. Oh yeah, Killer Bee said to Naruto with a strange voice. And Naruto also quickly understood Killer Bee's meaning. After all, Killer Bee had been holding the Kisame in his hand for a long time. Naturally, he was clearer than Naruto about some of the weird things. When the chakra flame burned on Naruto's body, he couldn't feel its power, but when the chakra flame attached to the Kisame, its terrifying destructive power was directly displayed. Not only was the temperature terrifying, but more importantly, the solid shell on the surface of the Kisame actually had a tendency to disintegrate at this moment. Wawa, after the Kisame suffered unbearable damage, it let out a strange roar like a living creature. However, Naruto didn't let go of the chakra hand holding the Kisame. He just let the Kisame roar strangely. Finally, as if the Kisame couldn't withstand such damage, a powerful chakra burst out from its body. But this powerful chakra that burst out from the Kisame was not the chakra that Killer Bee fed it. Instead, it had another familiar feeling. In the Nine Tails chakra mode, Naruto's perception of chakra became very sensitive. From this kind of chakra, Naruto quickly sensed the owner of the Kisame. Kisame. Hearing Naruto's slightly surprised cry, Killer Bee, who was standing on the side, couldn't help but understand. Sure enough, Kisame still has a backup plan. As soon as Naruto's slightly surprised voice fell, the chakra flame wrapped around the Kisame was directly dispersed by the powerful chakra that burst out from the Kisame. The shape of the Kisame also gradually changed from the shape of a Kisame to a human shape. And this human shape transformed from the Kisame had a face that was almost identical to the Kisame. After a short period of sluggishness, the Kisame took a deep look at Naruto and Killer Bee standing opposite it. It didn't choose to fight directly. Instead, it directly turned around and increased its speed, trying to get away from Naruto and Killer Bee. Chapter 573. Seeing that Kisame suddenly appeared in front of them instead of Sharkbone, and had no intention to fight at all, Naruto and Killer Bee felt that this was a conspiracy. After all, Kisame made such an act of faking his death. There must be a purpose. Chase. Naruto and Killer Bee had such a thought at the same time. Killer Bee and Naruto both increased their speed and chased after Kisame. However, whether it was because the Kisame ghost shark had retained some of its strength before, or because it had fused with the shark's muscles, its physical fitness had greatly improved. The Kisame ghost shark was able to rely on its speed to leave behind the two Jinchuriki who had been blessed by the tailed beasts. While rushing, Kisame also began to sense the powerful Hachibi chakra in his body from Killer Bee. This powerful chakra that belonged to Hachibi was actually the real purpose of Kisame. In Akatsuki organization, Kisame was one of the few people who really knew about Uchiha Obito's almost delusional Eye of the Moon plan in advance. His experience since childhood made Kisame very disappointed in this world. Uchiha Obito appeared in front of a person who was full of disappointment in this world, and used his silver tongue to describe such an illusory world for Kisame. Because there was no goal for him to fight for, Kisame also unconsciously regarded Uchiha Obito's almost delusional plan as a pursuit that he could fight for. Originally, Kisame Kisame's fake death was actually to let himself follow Killer Bee, who had a high status in Kyumo Shinobu Village, to explore what kind of plan the 5 great ninja villages were going to use to fight against Akatsuki and Uchiha Obito. But he didn't expect that after entering the Land of Lightning, Killer Bee didn't return to Kyumo Shinobu Village to participate in the planning of the battle plan. Instead, he brought Uzumaki Naruto from Woodleaf Village to this ruin. Along the way, the conversation between Naruto and Killer Bee was naturally heard by Kisame. So Kisame also slightly changed his plan. The resurrection of Jubi requires a huge amount of chakra from the body of the 9 Jinchuriki. Now, 7 of the 9 Jinchuriki have been collected by Akatsuki, and only the Hachibi Jinchuriki and Kyubi Jinchuriki have not been captured yet. However, there was not only one way to resurrect the Jubi. Before he came here, Black Zetsu, who had been acting as the agent of Uchiha Obito, told Kisame a way to resurrect the Jubi without capturing the 9 tails and the 8 tails. The power of the 9-tailed beast was indeed the key to resurrecting the 10 tails. Only by gathering the characteristics of the 9-tailed beasts and a huge amount of chakra could the 10 tails be completely resurrected. But if it was only resurrecting the Jubi, it was actually not so difficult. As long as the 9-tailed beast chakra were collected as a primer, plus a certain amount of chakra, it was actually completely possible to awaken the Jubi. Although this method may cause the Jubi's power to be somewhat incomplete, but it was also a way to awaken the Jubi. Therefore, Kisame used his shark flesh to continuously absorb the Hachibi chakra from Killer Bee's body during this period of time, in order to leave a backup plan for Uchiha Obito's Eye of the Moon plan. As long as he obtained enough Hachibi chakra as a seed, the possibility of resurrecting the Jubi would become more likely. The only regret was that he didn't collect the 9 tails chakra, but since he had been discovered, there was nothing he could do. Therefore, Ghost Merman and Ghost Merman decided to stop while they were ahead. At the moment they were discovered, they decided to retreat. After completely integrating himself into the Sharkman's muscles, the physical fitness of Kisame has been greatly improved. Moreover, under the supply of huge chakra from the Sharkman's muscles, Kisame now has the power to surpass Kage level. Just as the Kismet Ghost Shark was using all kinds of skills and pushing his body to the limit to almost leave Naruto and Killer Bee behind, a green figure suddenly appeared in front of the Kismet Ghost Shark, blocking his way. "Aren't you that shark-faced?" Suddenly, he saw the dried persimmon ghost shark that was almost unrecognizable. Although he was a little dazed, he still recognized the dried persimmon ghost shark. After all, when he was in Konoha, Might Guy had a very fierce battle with Kisame. In the following years, for some unknown reason, many battles between Kisame and Might Guy have also taken place. After so many battles, Might Guy naturally remembered the physical features and even the aura of the Kismet Ghost Shark very clearly. However, he still couldn't remember the name of the Kismet Ghost Shark clearly. He still called the Kismet Ghost Shark by the nickname Shark Face. Woodleaf Rare Beast. My name is Dried Persimmon Ghost Shark. Remember it. Seeing Might Guy standing in front of him, the Kismet Ghost Shark knew that a battle between him and Might Guy was inevitable. At this moment, the Kismet Ghost Shark looked like he was born for battle. His dark blue body and the sharp spikes that appeared on his joints proved that he had completely entered the battle mode. The Kismet Ghost Shark was very unhappy that he could only run away when he saw Naruto and Killer Bee just now. Although the Might Guy in front of him could be regarded as a strong opponent before, he was now fully strengthened. The Might Guy he met before was definitely not a match for him. Since he could fight wantonly, the Kismet Ghost Shark naturally wouldn't hide his desire to attack. As long as he could defeat Might Guy quickly, he would have time to complete his plan. From the bottom of his heart, Kismet Ghost Shark also hoped that he could defeat Might Guy. After going through so many battles, Might Guy and Kismet Ghost Shark had developed a mutual appreciation for each other. Thinking that he could defeat Might Guy, who was standing in front of him, Kisame Ghost Shark's heart was actually moved a little. Chapter 574. Without any hesitation, Kisame directly rushed towards my guy. For a long time, Kisame gave others the impression that he was a ninjutsu-type ninja who relied on his huge chakra to use all kinds of ninjutsu to defeat the enemy. Although he had the seven sword of the mist in his hand, in fact, Kisame didn't have a particularly outstanding record in close combat. And my guy was also a person who had fought with Kisame several times, so he had a certain understanding of Kisame's. To be honest, Kisame's taijutsu level has only reached the passing line of Jonin, but his taijutsu level isn't the strongest among Jonin. At this moment, Kisame dared to directly attack. Such behavior made my guy, who was proficient in taijutsu, slightly raise his vigilance. There must be a reason behind this abnormality. This principle could be applied to everything. Looking at Kisame rushing towards him, my guy, as a ninja who specializes in taijutsu, naturally won't be afraid of any taijutsu challenge. Kisame looked at my guy, who was standing in front of him without dodging, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. After all, my guy didn't take him seriously at all. Kisame also knows that close combat is his weakness, but being treated with contempt like this is unacceptable to anyone, let alone Kisame, who is a bit proud and arrogant. You rare beast, get ready to be defeated by me. Clenching a fist on his waist, chakra was constantly condensing on Kisame's fist. The powerful energy has even wrapped Kisame's fist with a layer of wind, looking quite fierce. Kisame's taijutsu is very different from my guy's taijutsu. The taijutsu that Kisame is using at this moment should be called ninjutsu, which is to apply chakra to his own taijutsu, using chakra as the main application, and taijutsu as an auxiliary means of combat. With the huge chakra, Kisame's fighting style, without caring about the consumption of taijutsu, has undoubtedly greatly increased the destructive power of Kisame's attack. Looking at Kisame, who clenched his fist and attacked him, my guy's face was dignified, but he had no intention of dodging. The simplest way to understand the level of a person's taijutsu is to take a punch from that person. When this punch landed on his body, as a ninja who specializes in taijutsu, it was easy for him to distinguish his opponent's physical fitness and strength. Shark face, I'm waiting for you to defeat me. To be able to have a formidable opponent in life is to have a truly youthful life. Looking at the Kismet ghost shark, my guy opened his mouth and laughed out loud, revealing a row of sparkling white teeth. Hearing my guy's words, even though Kisame thought that he already knew my guy well enough, but he still couldn't help but have a big drop of cold sweat on his face. Sure enough, this guy wearing green tights is indeed a rare beast. What kind of environment can cultivate such a ninja? Thinking about Lunken Otaru, who also joined Akatsuki, and Itachi Uchiha, who used to be his teammate, his heart was full of all kinds of feelings, but his heart was completely frozen. Would Leaf Village in the Land of Fire? It's really a different place from the ninja world. If he had the chance, Kisame really hoped that he could settle down in Wood Leaf Village for a few years and feel how different this village is from the rest of the ninja world. Putting aside these idle thoughts, at this moment, Kisame's fist, wrapped in chakra, hit Mike Guy's two forearms that were crossed in front of his chest. Obviously, it was just the collision of fist and forearm, but it was like a roaring sound of a waterfall hitting a rock. Even at the moment when Kisame's fist and Mike Guy's arm intersected, a circle of airwaves appeared in the air because of the impact of the huge force. Mike Guy underestimated the strength of Kisame after the fusion with Sharkbone. At the moment when he was hit, Mike Guy's body was like a kite with a broken string directly flying backward. After crashing into several trees and leaving a long trail of dust on the ground, Mike K's body finally came to a stop. Suddenly, there was a sweet taste in his throat, and blood oozed out of Mike Guy's mouth at this moment. Obviously, because of the impact of the huge force, Might Guy's internal organs also suffered a certain degree of damage. Although he suffered a certain degree of damage, Might Guy was not discouraged at this moment, because Might Guy had already roughly understood what kind of level Kisame was at this moment. At this moment, Kisame had indeed become different. If he didn't open the Hashiman Tanku, then in terms of fighting ability, he was indeed inferior to Kisame, but once he opened the Hashiman Tanku, then Kisame was simply not enough in front of him. Open the door. Gate of rest. Gate of life. Gate of pain. Open for me. Using the chakra in his body to constantly stimulate his body, Might Guy opened half of the Hashiman Tanku in almost an instant. The originally not-so-scary aura directly erupted from Might Guy's body at this moment. If Might Guy, without opening the Hashiman Tanku, was a kitten, then Might Guy, after opening the Hashiman Tanku, was a tiger coming down from the mountain. The proud azure beast of wood leaf, this was what Might Guy had always called himself. Although Kisame felt that Might Guy was more of a rare beast than a beast, Might Guy, who had truly entered the battle state, was definitely an opponent that couldn't be underestimated. Hearing Might Guy's roar when he opened the Hashiman Tanku, Kisame, who had been standing in place after attacking Might Guy, couldn't help but be on guard. The muscles all over his body tightened. Kisame knew that the real battle between him and Might Guy had just begun. Chapter 575. In the smoke and dust, Might K's special roar appeared in Kisame's ears. Unlike the general ninja, who specializes in assassination, Might K is better at direct confrontation. So this roar is in line with Might K's fighting style, to gain the upper hand by a show of strength. At the same time Might K roared, the thick smoke was like a fragile soap bubble. It was directly shaken and dispersed. Might K's body, which was wearing a green tights, was also burning with green chakra flame. The green chakra flame slowly burned on Might K's body. Coupled with Might K's white eyes and red skin, he looked full of violent power. Like a flying cannonball, Might K rushed straight towards Kisame. Looking at Might K, who seemed to be unscathed, rushing towards him, Kisame knew that now was not the time to be arrogant, and immediately began to form hand seals. Water release. Water explosion shockwave. Finally, Kisame used his best water release ninjutsu. He opened his mouth, and a huge stream of water rushed out of his mouth in an unnatural way. The huge amount of water directly submerged the forest where Kisame and Might K were fighting. If it weren't for the fear of attracting Naruto and Killer Bee, Kisame could have used ninjutsu twice the scale of his current ninjutsu. Looking at the huge wave that was 10 meters tall, rushing towards him, Michael Kai did not dodge. His body did not stop, but he kicked his right leg up. Would Leaf Vajra battle axe kick. Because of opening the Hashiman Tanku, the chakra flame that was constantly produced from his body gathered toward his raised right leg under Might K's control. The green chakra flame burned on Might K's right leg, gradually forming the shape of an axe. Break for me! When Might K shouted the last word, the huge wave had already arrived in front of Might K. Might K raised his right leg high and directly swung it down. The right leg that was burning with chakra flame in the shape of a battle axe directly chopped down on the wave. The water flow is soft as if it has no substance. All attacks that hit the water will slowly be eliminated. But at this moment, the 10-meter-high wave was directly split in half by Might K's kick like tofu. Moreover, there seemed to be wisps of smoke drifting out from the section where the waves were split apart due to the speed and strength of the attack being too fast and powerful. Although the wave was split, Might K's battle axe kick didn't lose its power. After using his kick to cut off the water waves, the force generated by the kick was like a transparent blade, rushing towards the Kisame ghost shark. Chi! The sound of the chakra energy cutting through the air was very ear-piercing. Because Kismet Ghost Shark had fused with his shark muscles, he seemed to have gained some of the sharp senses of a beast. The sense of crisis that came from his heart made Kismet Ghost Shark very clear that he couldn't take Mike K's attack head-on. Kismet Ghost Shark bit his thumb and quickly made a hand gesture. Psychic technique. Thousand Eating Shark. Summoned by Kismet Ghost Shark, sharks appeared in the lake water that flooded the forest. Under Kismet Ghost Shark's control, all the sharks came to the path of the chakra energy attack. They swung their tails and leaped high from the water, directly blocking the chakra energy with their bodies. Compared to the sharp strength chi blade, the shark's pure flesh and blood body was still not enough to look at. But Kismet Ghost Shark had summoned nearly 1,000 sharks. As the sharks appeared in front of the chakra energy blade, the chakra energy blade gradually weakened because these sharks used their bodies to block it. When the chakra energy blade arrived in front of Kismet Ghost Shark, it only had the appearance but no power. Kismet Ghost Shark gently waved his arm and directly met the chakra energy blade. Like brushing away a layer of dust, the chakra energy blade disappeared in the air. Looking at the nearly 1,000 sharks summoned by the Kismet Ghost Shark to defend against the powerful chi attacks, only 40 to 50 of them were left. Sharks were creatures that would go crazy after being stimulated by the smell of blood. Over 900 sharks were cut in half by the chakra energy. The blood from the dead sharks even dyed the lake red. The sharks that survived in the water were all roaming in the lake, looking a little irritable. Under the guidance of the Kismet Ghost Shark, the remaining 40 to 50 sharks all locked their attacks on Mike K, who had been dashing towards the Kismet Ghost Shark all this time. Water release. Water shark bullet technique. Change. Kismet Ghost Shark quickly formed a hand seal, then pressed his hand on the water surface. Huge chakra energy kept rushing into the water. These chakra energy streams wrapped around the remaining sharks. At this moment, these ordinary sharks seemed to be covered with a layer of armor molded by water. They directly turned from a normal 2-meter-long shark to a 5-meter-long shark. After adapting to the water flow that suddenly appeared on their bodies, the sharks seemed to realize that their bodies had been strengthened by a greater power. The group of sharks, who were a little hesitant because of Mike K's powerful aura, finally overcame their instinctive fear and rushed towards Mike K. Mike K was running on the water surface at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the calm water surface, he couldn't help but feel a sense of crisis. That hair-raising feeling made Mike K immediately slow down his speed. He stepped on the water surface forcefully, and his body slid sideways on the water surface. Just as Mike K's body slid sideways, 3 huge sharks wrapped in water shark bombs appeared where Mike K originally was, seemingly wanting to bite Mike K, who was still there just a moment ago. Chapter 576. Seeing the huge shark wrapped in the water shark bullet, Mike K's eyes not only showed no fear, but instead flashed with a glimmer of excitement. Shark face, you're really a formidable opponent, second only to Kakashi. That's it. Let the blood flowing in my body, let all the thoughts in my mind turn into a burning flame. Youth is to release the hot blood in my body. Youth is to fight with all my strength. In addition to being called the proud azure beast of Woodleaf, Mike K also had another name, Crazy K. When fighting, Mike K would always be unavoidably excited. But such excitement did not affect Mike K's fighting ability at all. Instead, it greatly improved Mike K's battle strength. The 5th gate, Gate of Limit. Open. Clenching his hands into fists, Mike K endured the pain on his body and shouted towards the sky. How long has it been? He didn't fight with all his might like now. At this moment, Mike K no longer had any scruples. All he had was a thirst for victory. He was like a traveler who was struggling to survive in the desert. For Mike K, defeating the enemy and winning was the sweet spring that sustained his life. After opening the 5th gate, Mike K's physical fitness had greatly improved. While his physical fitness had improved, Mike K's speed had also become beyond common sense. Michael K squatted down a little, and after a short period of charging, he started to move. Bang! A huge airwave was directly generated behind Mike K. Such a phenomenon was called sonic boom. It was a natural phenomenon that occurred when the speed of an object exceeded the speed of sound transmission. In layman's terms, because the speed was too fast, the resulting force began to compress the air, causing the air to explode after being compressed. Although Kisame tried his best to capture the direction of Mike K's movement with his eyes, Mike K's speed at the moment had completely exceeded the speed of the shark wrapped in the water shark bullet. After all, maintaining the water shark bullet was actually a burden for Kisame. Since he could no longer use this ninjutsu to attack or even restrain Mike K, maintaining this ninjutsu was a waste of his chakra. Water release. Water shark bullet jutsu. Change. The original B-class water shark bullet jutsu. After Kisame used chakra without caring about the consumption. Now its power was not inferior to an S-class ninjutsu. Balls of water wrapped in chakra floated up from the water surface. Under the control of chakra, they turned into shuttles and rotated constantly. Like spinning armor-piercing bullets, these water fangs flew towards the places where Ghost Shark had predicted Mike K would pass by. Originally, it was only a single attack, but now Kisame Ghost Shark had turned it into an AoE attack. Covering the surface of the water one after another, Kisame constantly used ninjutsu to reduce Mike Guy's range of action. Although at this moment, Mike Guy's speed indeed made Kisame unable to hit him no matter what kind of ninjutsu he used, but the range of Mike Guy's movement was limited. Now, Kisame uses ninjutsu to continuously restrict Mike Guy's movement range to a certain extent. The effect was indeed outstanding. Unless Mike Guy wanted to break through Kisame's blockade, regardless of the damage to his body, he could only passively take a beating. Kisame was indeed worried that if he and Mike Guy fought too much, Naruto and Killer Bee would catch up with him and attack him from both sides. But for Mike K, he was also very worried about time. Although the 8 inner hidden gates were powerful, the burden on the human body was too heavy. For him, the 8 inner hidden gates could only be regarded as a trump card, not a means that he could use frequently. At this moment, after fighting with Kisame for a while, Mike Guy could already feel that his body was beginning to be overwhelmed. He could even vaguely hear a whining sound coming from the depths of his body. I can't be suppressed by Kisame like this. Mike Guy only had such a thought in his mind. After fighting for such a long time, he didn't even leave any scars on Kisame's body. Such a battle could almost be said to be fruitless, and Mike Guy couldn't bear such a battle. Pressing his thumb on his body, Mike Guy poured his chakra into his fingertips. In this way, Mike Guy once again opened the next gate of the 8 inner hidden gates. The 6th gate, Gate of View, open. When opening the Gate of View, Mike Guy didn't roar as loudly as before. Instead, he said such words in a low and hoarse voice. When Mike K hid all his rage in the bottom of his heart, his low voice sounded like that of a god who was judging the world. His eyes that had completely turned white stared straight at Kisame, who was standing behind the water, splashed by the water. Obviously, there was no trace of emotion on his face, but Kisame's heart couldn't help but feel a chill that was difficult to dispel. Stepping on the water with his feet, Mike Guy's body directly jumped high into the air. Under normal circumstances, ninjas avoid floating in the air. After all, in the state of having no leverage in the air, their body almost becomes a target. But at this moment, Mike Guy obviously had a deep meaning, so he floated his body in the air. While floating in the air, Mike Guy's body began to exude a powerful aura. Even his originally ridiculous watermelon head started to move without wind under the influence of the powerful aura produced by Mike Guy, showing a powerful power. In the blink of an eye, Michael K's arms and legs became illusory. This was a phenomenon produced when Mike Guy punched and kicked at a very high speed. Because his arms and legs were constantly waving, the friction in the air caused a cluster of orange flames to appear out of thin air, wrapping Might Guy's body. This move is Morning Phoenix. Chapter 577. Might Guy's body was wrapped in flames. Due to the constant movement of his arms and legs, his body was slowly floating in the air without any signs of sagging. Looking at Might Guy's body wrapped in flames, Kisame Ghost Shark's eyes flashed with a trace of graveness and doubt. Might Guy is one of the few famous ninjas of Wood Leaf, and there is actually a lot of information about him in the ninja world. And the most important thing about this information circulating in the ninja world is that Might Guy, as a ninja, doesn't use any ninjutsu, and the amount of chakra in his body is very small. He has never used any ninjutsu or jinjutsu. Kisame believed this before, but at this moment, Might Guy's body was shrouded in flames. If he wanted to find a reasonable explanation, it could only be fire-release ninjutsu. Following common sense, Kisame increased the output of his chakra. The dried persimmon ghost shark had been using the water tooth bullets to seal off Might Guy's range of movement. Now, under the dried persimmon ghost shark's control, the water tooth bullets merged together. Making a few more hand seals, Kisame completed a ninjutsu derived from the Waterfong Jutsu. Water style, giant water tooth. Originally, the water tooth bullets were formed from water to form a shuttle that was about 20 to 30 centimeters long to attack the enemy. Instead of water tooth, it was more like a water shuttle. But now, under the control of the Kismet Ghost Shark, these water streams were condensing together, forming a huge shark mouth shape. Even the tall and sturdy body of the Kismet Ghost Shark seemed a little tiny in front of it. After locking onto Might Guy's position, Kisame adjusted the attacking direction of the giant water tooth with his chakra, then gave a loud growl. Go! Following the dried persimmon ghost shark's roar, its huge shark teeth directly rushed towards Might Guy. Floating in the air, Might Guy couldn't help but see the extraordinarily powerful giant water tooth, which was being controlled by Kisame Ghost Shark, rushing towards him. However, at the moment, Might Guy didn't feel any threat at all. Let it burn. My body, my blood, my youth. Might Guy's legs exerted force, and a sonic boom was produced behind him. His body seemed to be stepping on the ground as he rushed towards the direction of the giant water tooth. At this moment, Kisame, Jizuya attack, and Might Guy were in a straight line. Either Might Guy would be swallowed by Jizuya attack, and Kisame would win, or Might Guy would break Jizuya attack and attack Kisame, who would be unable to move due to the continuous chakra output from Jizuya attack. Life and death, victory and defeat would be decided in this move. Rare beast, go to hell. Shark face, let me defeat you. Although there was a huge water ninjutsu between Might Guy and Kisame, whether it was Might Guy or Kisame, at this moment, their gazes directly penetrated the giant water tooth and fell on each other's body. Kisame, and Might Guy roared at the same time. Whether it was the speed of Might Guy's punches and kicks or the output of chakra, both of them had reached the peak state. At this moment, Kisame didn't care whether he could return to Akatsuki with so many Hachibi chakra, or whether he would be caught by Naruto and Killer Bee, and then face the risk of being defeated. At this moment, what Kisame wanted was only victory. After defeating Might Guy, he would get the taste of victory that would make him infinitely satisfied. Because he attacked from above, plus the thrust brought by the previous kick, Might Guy's body fell very fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, Might Guy's figure directly rushed into the huge shark mouth of giant water tooth. Seeing Might Guy directly rushed into his ninjutsu, Kisame didn't hesitate to increase the power of chakra above his limit. The huge shark mouth of giant water tooth directly closed and directly bit Might Guy, who rushed in. Through the not-so-transparent water, it was obvious that Might Guy's body was constantly being suppressed by the water pressure from all directions. But Mike Guy didn't seem to have lost the ability to fight. The best proof of this point was that the flame burning on Mike Guy's body didn't show any sign of extinguishing at this moment. With the passage of time, the orange flame on Mike Guy's body didn't get extinguished by the water like ordinary flames. Instead, it became more and more fierce. The water wasn't so transparent to begin with. At this moment, it became completely impossible to see the internal situation. Only some white things began to spread from the place where Mike Guy was just now to all directions. Gradually, the giant waterfong's tightly shut shark mouth began to change shape. Bubbles began to appear on the surface of the giant water tooth. It felt like the giant water tooth was being boiled. No, it didn't feel like it. At this moment, giant water tooth was really boiling. The shape of giant water tooth's shark mouth became more and more exaggerated. In the end, it completely turned into a shapeless, constantly boiling, and completely white water ball. Mike Guy's almost iconic strange roar directly rushed out of the water ball and directly passed into Kisame's ears. Originally, Kisame thought that Mike Guy would lose the ability to fight because of the lack of oxygen after being trapped in a water ball. As long as Mike Guy didn't come out of the water ball, Kisame had a chance to win. But at this moment, after hearing Mike Guy's roar, Kisame knew that his expectation was actually a failure. Water was mainly composed of hydrogen and oxygen. When heated to a certain extent, it would decompose into hydrogen and oxygen was an important gas to ignite flames. After being enveloped by the giant water tooth, Mike Guy maintained a high speed of movement with his arms and legs to form a vacuum space, allowing the flames on his body to burn for a short period of time. The powerful heat of the flames also constantly vaporized the water around Mike Guy. The vaporized water also fed the flames. After a series of chain reactions, the flames wrapped around Mike Guy's body became more and more turbulent. If one had to find an adjective, perhaps there were only 4 words: Nirvana rebirth. Chapter 578. Because of the strong air pressure inside his body, the huge water ball wrapped in chakra was like a balloon meeting a sharp object and directly exploded. The moment the water ball exploded, a large flame burst out from it. The miraculous scene of water and fire merging appeared in front of the Kismet ghost shark and Mike K. However, neither of them were in the mood to appreciate such a miraculous scene. The shark-like eyes of the Kismet ghost shark were now filled with an orange glow. This wasn't because the Kismet ghost shark's eyes were bloodshot or something else. Instead, it was because a ball of flame was rushing towards the Kismet ghost shark. The flame was very fast, and Kismet ghost shark's body was temporarily paralyzed because of the chakra that exceeded his limit. There was no way for him to dodge this flame. The orange flame directly hit the Kismet ghost shark's body. The burning sensation was transmitted directly to the Kismet ghost shark's brain. Perhaps it was because its body had fused with the shark's flesh. The Kismet ghost shark's sense of pain had become much sharper. Its steel-like was completely unable to resist the burning sensation coming from its skin. A mournful cry came out of Kismet ghost shark's mouth, but such a cry was not enough to stop Mike Guy's action. Like a ghost, Mike Guy's figure appeared directly in front of Kismet ghost shark. Without the slightest hesitation, Mike Guy clenched his hand into a fist, and after a short period of power, he directly punched Kismet ghost shark's abdomen with his fist. Its dark blue, shark-like skin couldn't do any harm to Mike K's powerful fist at all. Like a sharp scalpel, Mike K's fist directly pierced into the Kismet ghost shark's abdomen. Because his internal organs were injured, Kismet ghost shark's shark-like face directly twitched, and his mouth with sharp teeth spat out a large mouthful of blood. The hot blood directly poured on Mike Guy's arm that was deeply stabbed into Kismet ghost shark's abdomen. The chakra flame that appeared on Mike Guy's body because of the opening of the 8 inner hidden gates slowly extinguished at this moment. The powerful aura emanating from Mike Guy's body disappeared without a trace the moment the chakra flames disappeared. The floating hair, the white eyeballs, and the red skin all over his body also disappeared in an instant. Mike Guy looked at Kismet ghost shark that he had attacked, and his eyes flashed with deep fatigue. He forcefully pulled out his hand from Kismet ghost shark's abdomen. Kismet ghost shark's body, which had become somewhat weak due to the injury, directly fell to the ground. The moment Kismet ghost shark fell to the ground, the shark's muscles and Kismet ghost shark separated. The size of the shark's muscles seemed to have become slightly smaller due to the consumption of a large amount of chakra, and the body of Kismet ghost shark at this moment exuded a very unnatural pale color, without even a trace of blood. In the end, Mike Guy still held back. After all, although the two sides had spoken a lot of harsh words during the battle, Mike Guy had never said that he would kill Kismet ghost shark from the beginning to the end of the battle. People need close friends in their life, but they also need strong enemies. Although Mike Guy has always said that Hatake Kakashi is his lifelong enemy, but after all, Mike Guy and Hatake Kakashi are ninjas from the same ninja village. To a large extent, Mike Guy and Hatake Kakashi can be said to be close friends who compete with each other and promote each other. Kismet Ghost Shark is different. Kismet Ghost Shark is a member of Akatsuki, which is completely hostile to Woodleaf Village. From the moment they met Kismet Ghost Shark, Mike Guy and Kismet Ghost Shark were destined to be enemies. As the friction between Akatsuki and Konoha increased, Mike Guy and Kisame appeared again and again, as if it was their destiny. Fighting is the best way to understand a person. So although Kismet Ghost Shark and Mike Guy didn't say it clearly, but there's a faint feeling of mutual appreciation between them. At the moment when Mike Guy was accumulating his power while attacking Kisame, Mike Guy kept reminding himself that he must not hold back. He must not hold back. However, when his fist was about to land on Kisame's body, his fist, which was originally aimed at Kisame's heart, involuntarily moved towards Kisame's waist and abdomen. Intentionally or unintentionally, Mike Guy's fist even avoided the fatal part of his abdomen. Why don't you kill me? At this moment, although Kismet Ghost Shark's eyes have become slightly lifeless, but he still tried to look at Mike Guy, as if he wanted to see more clearly the powerful man who defeated him. Hearing Kismet Ghost Shark's question, Mike Guy's eyes also became absent-minded, because Mike Guy actually didn't know why he spared Kismet Ghost Shark's life. All of this seems to be his heart telling him that he didn't want Kismet Ghost Shark to die like this. Seeing the obvious lifeless struggle in Mike Guy's eyes, Kisame Ghost Shark, who was lying on the ground, couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Unlike the mocking smile he made before, at this moment, Kismet Ghost Shark's smile revealed infinite regret and envy. Konoha Village. Sure enough, they have cultivated a group of naive fools. Obviously, such naivety is enough to be fatal in the man-eat-man ninja world, but why can't I help but feel a bit envious when I see the naivety in your heart? Kismet Ghost Shark suddenly thought of his former teammate, Itachi Uchiha, and the current actual leader of Akatsuki organization, Uchiha Bido, and his eyes gently slid over Mike Guy's body. Then Kismet Ghost Shark couldn't help but say, "If I was also born in Woodleaf Village, how good would it be? You and I would definitely become best friends." Chapter 579. Standing in front of Kismet Ghost Shark, Mike K looked at Kismet Ghost Shark's face and listened to him murmuring. At the same time, the struggling look in Mike K's eyes grew clearer. Disregarding the hostile relationship between the Kismet Ghost Shark and himself, Mike Guy squatted down in front of the Kismet Ghost Shark and said, "Instead of being so envious, why don't you come back to Woodleaf with me? As long as you tell us everything, I believe that neither Hokage-sama nor anyone else will make things difficult for you. Under my care, even if you don't become a ninja, you can live a good life in Woodleaf. In fact, everything is still not too late. You can." Mike K, who had always been extremely careless, was now earnestly preaching to his enemy, the Kismet ghost shark. Moreover, judging from Mike K's eyes that were brimming with concern, it was clear that Mike K truly hoped that Xian could help the Kismet ghost shark or even spare its life. The Kismet ghost shark didn't interrupt Mike K, but Mike K didn't say anything after half of a sentence. Michael K wasn't a stupid person. In fact, in many cases, Michael K was intelligent and full of his own style. When Mike Guy first persuaded Kisame, it was indeed out of his sincerity, but the more he talked, the more he realized how unrealistic his promise to Kisame was. Although he didn't get involved in politics, Mike Guy was one of Wood Leaf's top jonin after all. Many of Wood Leaf's dark side were exposed in front of Mike Guy. If he really brought the dried persimmon ghost shark back alive, what kind of treatment would that dried persimmon ghost shark receive? Although he didn't directly see Wood Leaf's interrogation apartment and the various interrogation methods of Wood Leaf's Mike Guy still heard a lot of information from Kakashi, who had experience in the To be honest, even if Kisame has the strength of a Kage level or even higher, once he falls into the hands of Wood Leaf's interrogation apartment and Wood Leaf's being able to keep his mind is already the best state for him. One must know that whether it is Wood Leaf's interrogation department or Wood Leaf's there are many Yamanaka clansmen who are proficient in spiritual manipulation and exploration. Forcibly invading the enemy's brain and obtaining information from their memories is the Yamanaka clan's specialty, and it is also the ultimate method of the and the Wood Leaf's So, you are really naive. Looking at Mike Guy, who didn't say anything, Kisame Ghost Shark grinned widely. He didn't feel any sadness at the end of the road. Instead, he felt a different sense of relief. I'm a ninja from the Mist Village. From childhood to adulthood, my life was full of betrayal and killing each other. Every friend of mine could become an enemy who wants to kill me in the next moment. Although when I grew up, I understood that this kind of situation actually only exists in the Mist Village. But as I came into contact with more and more people, I found that there is no difference between the cruelty of the Mist Village and the cruelty of the ninja world. Everyone can still put you to death, and even compared to the Mist Village, there are countless ways to kill people in the ninja world. When I realized this, a part of my heart had already collapsed. At that time, I met the current leader of the Akatsuki. He didn't hide anything and told me about his plan. It's funny to say that I'm not the strongest person in the Akatsuki, but I'm the one who is closest to the biggest plan of the Akatsuki. Kisame's face showed a touch of powerlessness, and then he said to Mike Guy, although I've been talking about my yearning for Konoha, in fact, you and I both know that Konoha's so-called Pearl of the Shinobi world is actually just a means to boast. Wood Leaf is no less dirty and dark than any other place. I'm not only disappointed in the Mist Village, the ninja world, and the ninja world, I'm disappointed in the whole world. I'm not a selfless person, and I don't want to be a messenger of justice to protect the lives of others. I'm an extremely selfish egoist. Since the world is so disgusting to me, and an opportunity to change the whole world is in front of me, then I will naturally give it a try. I don't care what kind of scene it will be in the infinite Tsukuyami world. I'm just disappointed in the current ninja world. It's quite interesting to help the ninja world change its face. You don't have to say so much, and you don't have to worry about it. In fact, your choice now is very simple. Either kill me here, or take me to the Wood Leaf interrogation department, or Wood Leaf so that they can get more information from my brain. The Kismet ghost shark raised his head and exposed his neck to Mike K. He said to Mike K fearlessly, and even somewhat expectantly, don't worry. I'll give you such an opportunity. Whether you kill me or take me back to the Wood Leaf, it's all up to you. Looking at Kisame, who completely gave up resistance in front of him, Mike Guy's iron-blooded heart, which was tempered in his long ninja career, couldn't help but loosen. He's not Kisame, and he hasn't experienced what Kisame has experienced. However, Mike Guy could still taste the 3 flavors from the dried persimmon ghost shark's words, which sounded like his last words. If he is really from the perspective of a Wood Leaf ninja, bringing Kisame back to the wood leaf can undoubtedly bring more useful information to the wood leaf. But as a warrior, in the face of such an enemy, sending him to the wood leaf interrogation department, or umbu, is a great disrespect and humiliation to him. At this moment, Mike Guy showed a rare hesitation. If this situation must be described, it's a conflict between Mike Guy's warrior heart and his sense of responsibility as a ninja. Just when Mike Guy was hesitating, two huge chakra suddenly came from afar. Almost in an instant, the hesitation in Mike Guy's heart directly disappeared. Without any hesitation, he hacked his palm onto the Kismet ghost shark's neck like a knife. In an instant, a tremendous force crushed the Kismet ghost shark's throat. Then he kicked the Kismet ghost shark, who was lying on the ground. The lifeless body of Kisame's fell directly into the lake created by Kisame's water release, and disappeared without a trace. Then Mike K turned his eyes towards the place where the two huge chakras were emitted. Chapter 580. Mike K. Mr. Bushy Eyebrows. When Naruto and Killer Bee saw that the Sharingan had transformed into Kisame, they immediately sped up and wanted to catch up with the Kisame to figure out what was going on. However, after the Kisame regained its consciousness and took control of its body, it immediately escaped into the depths of the forest. Naruto, who had mastered the Nine Tails chakra mode, could actually use this new power to sense any familiar chakra source, but after all, he had just mastered this power, so he was not very familiar with it. Although the Nine Tails in Naruto's body had reached an agreement with Naruto, to a large extent, the Nine Tails was still observing Naruto and would not give too much help to Naruto. The Kismet ghost shark's soaring body structure and its deliberately suppressed chakra aura made it difficult for Naruto to find its whereabouts. Under the influence of these various factors, Naruto and Killer Bee could not catch up with the fleeing Kismet ghost shark. After Naruto and Killer Bee tracked the Kismet ghost shark for a long time, Naruto, who had finally entered the Nine Tails chakra mode, sensed a huge chakra wave coming from a forest a little far away from him. Naruto and Killer Bee finally realized that they had been deliberately misled by the Kismet ghost shark. Although they were very surprised that the seemingly careless Kismet ghost shark would use such a method to mislead them, what was done could not be undone. No matter how much they regretted it, it was meaningless. Although his reaction was a little slow, Naruto could clearly sense a very familiar aura in the place where the huge chakra burst out. After exchanging a glance with Killer Bee, Naruto and Killer Bee immediately rushed towards the place where the huge chakra burst out. Because of the distance, although Killer Bee and Naruto had pushed their speed to the extreme, it still took a certain amount of time to reach the place where the battle took place. To Naruto and Killer Bee's surprise, the battle with such a powerful chakra did not end quickly. On the contrary, it became more and more intense. Finally, after a rapid trek, Naruto and Killer Bee finally came out of the dense forest and saw Mike K leaning against a tree, looking very tired. Naruto came to Mike K's side and helped the pale-looking Mike K up. Naruto and Mike K's direct disciple Lee Luo-ku were very familiar with each other. Naturally, he had seen Lee in a weakened state after using the 8 gates. Although the current Mike Guy was different from Li Shaoli when he left the 8 inner hidden gates, he wasn't too far away from it. Teacher, thick eyebrows. Where's this? Naruto just opened his mouth to ask Mike Guy what happened here. Killer Bee, who just separated from Naruto to explore the surroundings, took the lead and said to Naruto, "That's right. Yo-yo, the water here is very strange. It seems to be a kind of water escape. Shark face, strong water escape. The one fighting here is Shark Face? Oh yeah." Hearing Killer Bee's strange tone, Mike K, who was helped up by Naruto, couldn't help but frown. It's Kisan Ghost Shark. Mike K, who has always been very bad at remembering other people's names, actually said the name of Kisan Ghost Shark directly at this moment. This kind of situation is very rare for people who are familiar with Mike K. But neither Naruto nor Killer Bee knew that Mike K had such a characteristic, so they didn't think much of it. I came here to check on Naruto's training under the order of the 4th Hokage Wave Windwater Gate. On the way here, I encountered Kisan Ghost Shark. Kisan Ghost Shark suddenly attacked me. In self-defense, a fight broke out between me and Kisan Ghost Shark. With that said, my guy raised his slightly weak arm and pointed at Naruto and Shibito. The surrounding environment was severely damaged. Everything here is proof of my battle with Kisan Ghost Shark. In the battle, because I was at a disadvantage, I used a powerful forbidden technique to kill Kisan Ghost Shark here. However, after using the forbidden technique, my body will enter a period of weakness. Therefore, the corpse of the Kismet Ghost Shark was swept into this lake that he created himself. In order to fight with me, Kisan Ghost Shark summoned a lot of sharks in this lake. Although Kisan Ghost Shark is dead now, there are still shark summoning beasts that haven't exhausted chakra swimming in it. Now I can't guarantee whether Kisan Ghost Shark's body is intact or not. Under normal circumstances, all conflicts that occur in the process of a ninja's mission should be written in a report and directly handed to their ninja village after the mission, and it is not allowed to be disclosed to anyone. But now, Mike K directly told Naruto and Killer Bee about his battle. Such behavior is actually not allowed, but Mike K's temperament is simply too unpredictable for people in the ninja world, and Naruto and Killer Bee are actually people who don't care about trifles, so naturally, they didn't question Mike K's words. After handing over Mike K to Killer Bee, Naruto slowly walked to the side of the lake that Kisan Ghost Shark created with his water release. The golden chakra flame that had been extinguished on Naruto's body burned again at this moment. Naruto slowly stretched out his right hand in front of himself and opened his palm. The golden chakra flame was constantly condensing in it. Gradually, a golden flame lotus with red color appeared directly in Naruto's palm. Carefully observing the lake with his eyes and constantly feeling the faint chakra aura from Kisan Ghost Shark's lifeless body in the lake, Naruto gently raised his palm, and the flame lotus fell directly into the lake. Similar to the method Mike used to deal with Kisan Ghost Shark, Naruto used fire to restrain the water release at this moment. The flame lotus that Naruto threw out at this moment was actually a kind of compression of the Nine Tails chakra, but the Nine Tails chakra itself was full of blazing aura, so it was not worth mentioning to evaporate some water. The moment the flame lotus fell into the lake, the whole lake began to evaporate rapidly. Chapter 581. Although it's just a small flame that's not even as big as a fist, the huge amount of heat it contains is undoubtedly revealed in the confrontation with the water. The moment the yellow flame lotus with a tinge of red fell into the lake, the entire lake began to vaporize rapidly. However, after the water was vaporized into mist, it instantly disappeared under the attack of the huge heat, just like ice and snow meeting the scorching sun. Such a miraculous thing appeared directly in front of Mike Guy. Mike Guy has been a ninja in the ninja world for so many years. Naturally, he has seen a lot of powerful ninjas. Even the most proficient ninja in the ninja world, the Uchiha clan, is a member of Woodleaf. But even though he has seen so many powerful ninjas, the fire release they used is still within the scope of Mike Guy's understanding. Looking at the flame lotus that Naruto used just now, those powerful fire release ninjutsu in the eyes of Mike Guy are as small as the small flame in the stove when cooking. In the blink of an eye, the lake that originally didn't look small has turned into a huge pit at this moment, and even the ground at the bottom of the lake has cracked inch by inch under the heat of the flame lotus that Naruto just used. Standing on the edge of the pit, Naruto jumped directly to the bottom of the lake. Step by step, he walked on the cracked ground. At the feet of Naruto, there are shark corpses that have lost their lives because of the high temperature of the flame lotus, but Naruto didn't care about these. Instead, he continued to walk towards the center of the cracked ground. The closer he got to the center of the land, the more shark corpses there are. In the middle of these shark carcasses, there was a carcass that had lost its head and limbs. Its internal organs spilled out and flowed all over the place. Although he can't immediately confirm his identity with a little bluish skin, Naruto knows that this person is Kisame. After all, as a wood-leaf ninja, Naruto still trusts my guy, who has always been very loyal and honest. Originally, Naruto thought about whether he could find a relatively intact corpse of Kisame and bring it back to the wood-leaf so that the Yamanaka clan can read some information from the brain of Kisame. But now that the corpse of Kisame has been gnawed by those sharks, Naruto's idea of obtaining information from the corpse of Kisame has faded a lot. In fact, Kisame, and Naruto are quite related. When Naruto was still weak, Kisame, and Itachi Uchiha appeared in front of Naruto more than once, attacking Naruto, and Jiraiya wanted to capture the Nine Tails. Although he didn't say it, in fact, Kisame was a shadow in Naruto's heart. Such an existence that had threatened his life countless times has now become so miserable. Naruto didn't know what kind of emotion was in his heart. Was it relief or regret? Naruto couldn't explain it now. Alas, Naruto looked at the miserable Kisame in front of him, and after a long sigh, the chakra flame on his body suddenly surged. A giant chakra hand was directly produced behind Naruto. The giant hand slightly turned into a hook and drew a line on the ground, and a huge pit directly appeared on the ground. Once again condensing a smaller chakra hand behind him, Naruto directly put the remains of Kisame on the ground, and the several sharks lying on the ground beside it into the pit. Kisame. Although there have been many conflicts between you and me, I have to say that you are still a respectable powerhouse. I can't bear to see your body left here to be battered by the wind and rain, and to be pecked by the birds, so I can only build a simple tomb for you. I hope that you won't go astray in the other world, and help the evildoers do evil. After saying that, Naruto controlled the larger chakra hand to come to the pit where he had just placed the remains of Kisame, and removed the chakra hand. The soil that was originally in the giant hand directly fell down, burying the remains of Kisame, and the several sharks. After doing all this, Naruto jumped directly, flew high, and came to the side of Killer Bee and my guy. Sorry for making you wait for so long. Looking at Killer Bee and my guy, Naruto said to them apologetically. But Killer Bee and Mike Guy directly shook their heads, indicating that Naruto didn't mind. Mike Guy said to Naruto with a look of emotion on his face, although we have different standpoints, I have to say that Kisame is indeed a respectable opponent. You did the right thing. Respecting the opponent is also respecting yourself. Sure enough, this is youth. Killer Bee, standing on the side, didn't say anything, but from his expression, he agreed with Mike Guy's words. Now for Naruto and the others, time was very tight. After all, the battle was imminent. No one could guarantee that during the period when Kisame left the sight of Naruto and was met by Mike Guy, or even when he faked his death and hid in the shark's skin, he didn't pass on any important information. Yo, I'll go back to Shinobu village first and pass on Sharkface's message. You guys go back to Woodleaf and actively prepare for war. The war is about to break out. We must seek victory. Oh yeah, Killer Bee was an impatient person. After saying his proposal to Naruto and Mike Guy, he didn't wait for Naruto and Mike Guy's response. He directly reached out and picked up the shark's skin that had been rubbing against his feet like a spoiled child. He jumped up a tree and disappeared after a few jumps. Although Killer Bee didn't ask for Naruto and Mike Guy's opinion at this moment, and directly left for Naruto and Mike Guy, such a proposal was actually workable. After all, Naruto and Killer Bee came to the land of lightning to control the Nine Tails in his body. Now that their goal was achieved, there was naturally no reason to stay here. It was time to return to Woodleaf. For some reason, Naruto always had a feeling in his heart that the war was getting closer and closer. Chapter 582. In the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion, Xianxia stood at the door of her room and waited. Xianxia has always maintained a very calm state, except in front of his family and people who were very close to him. But at this moment, in front of Xianxia, the Altar Lord of Five Elements Altar, including Mishiro, Xianxia's hand couldn't help but stroke the sword in his hand. Not only Xianxia, in fact, everyone present, from the old man Aoki to the youngest Mishiro, was actually quite nervous because everyone was waiting for the key to Blood-Robed Pavilion's breakthrough. A few days ago, Uchiha Sasuke and his father Uchiha Fugaku were invited to the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion by Xianxia. The reason for inviting them was naturally not to take them to observe the Blood-Robed Pavilion, but to discuss with them before the most powerful I recorded in Uchiha clan's records, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, reappear in the world. Xianxia summoned almost all the disciples of Aoki Altar, who were most proficient in organ transplantation, to the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion. The only reason for all these disciples to come back was that Xianxia hoped to improve the success rate of such eye transplantation. Today is the day when Uchiha Sasuke will receive the eye transplant. I hope everything goes well. Xianxia gently closed his eyes, his hand still involuntarily stroking the slightly rough hilt of the sword in his hand, and silently said such a sentence in his heart. In the battle of the Fourth Shinobi World War, Blood-Robed Pavilion under the leadership of Xianxia did not join the Akatsuki or any of the 5 great shinobi villages. Although it's not clear what kind of disadvantages such a choice will bring, Blood-Robed Pavilion avoided the situation of participating in the battle and suffering losses. But Blood-Robed Pavilion is different from ordinary forces. Blood-Robed Pavilion is second only to the 5 great shinobi villages, and to a certain extent, it can even compete with the Akatsuki that hasn't completely exposed its cards. The more powerful the force, the more scruples it will have. Akatsuki itself is hostile to Blood-Robed Pavilion. After all, Akatsuki wanted to annex Blood-Robed Pavilion before. Because of various circumstances, Xianxia didn't think that joining the 5 great shinobi villages was a good choice for Blood-Robed Pavilion. Therefore, Uchiha Sasuke, the most powerful eye in the shinobi world, besides Rinnegan, the Sharingan. After all, the Sharingan, the most powerful eye is the Sharingan. Even the current actual leader of Akatsuki, who calls himself Uchiha Madara, actually only has Mangekyo Sharingan. If he can control Uchiha Sasuke, who has Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, in his hands, it is actually equivalent to controlling a big killing weapon. So, whether Sasuke's eye transplant is successful or not, in fact, it represents the most important gear of Xianxia's plans. Creak. The sound of the wooden door being opened was so clear that it was transmitted to everyone's ears. One by one, the disciples of Blood-Robed Pavilion, wearing white clothes, came out of the room one after another. Although they were wearing masks on their faces, Xianxia could still feel the involuntary joy from them. It seems that it's a success. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally calmed down, and his hand that was constantly groping for the sword's hilt also slowly relaxed at this moment. No matter what kind of new abilities Uchiha Sasuke's eyes obtained after receiving the Sharingan transplant, Sasuke's original Katon, Kagutsuchi, Amaterasu, and Susanoo abilities will definitely be greatly improved. Unlimited eye power and more powerful dojutsu are enough to bear the important role in Xianxia's plan. Looking at the open wooden door, Uchiha Sasuke didn't come out. The Altar Lords standing behind Xianxia couldn't help but want to go in and take a look, but they were stopped by Xianxia. After a few years of cultivation, although the Altar Masters of the 5 element altars were almost all at the Shadow tier, they were still different from Xianxia. At this moment, Xianxia could clearly feel that a kind of natural power began to gather in this room from all directions. If he had to describe why such a natural power appeared, Xianxia could only say that it was nature's praise for the appearance of Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Finally, after a while, the turbulent natural energy fluctuations that were difficult to detect by people who weren't familiar with natural energy calmed down. A powerful aura came out of the room. The altar masters of 5 elements altar, who wanted to rush in to check on Sasuke's condition, also noticed this powerful aura. Almost in an instant, the roof of the room where Sasuke was sitting was directly broken, and the broken tiles and wooden blocks scattered directly in all directions. But at this moment, whether it was Nangongja or the other altar lords, they didn't care about the damage of the room, because at this moment, a huge purple figure directly rushed out of the room. The complete body was wrapped in Crow Tengu's armor, and the purple chakra flame was constantly burning on Susanu's body. Such an indomitable giant was standing in front of everyone, and everyone could feel a huge pressure. Is this the power of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Looking at the people standing beside him who were trembling slightly, even the most powerful among them, Nangongja felt very obvious fear in his heart at this moment. If this Susanu really started to attack, then each of his attacks would be powerful enough to cut off everything in the world. Splitting mountains and splitting rocks was almost a matter of waving his hand. Sure enough, the power of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan was indeed very powerful, and this was only using Uchiha Fugaku's eyes. If Sasuke's eyes were Itachi Uchiha's eyes, what would the situation be like? Nangongja couldn't help but think, but what Nangongja didn't know was that since Uchiha Fugaku awakened Manjikyu Sharingan, he almost didn't use its power, so such an eye could almost be regarded as a brand new Manjikyu Sharingan that hasn't been consumed, while Itachi's Sharingan has been exhausted in battle. In fact, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes could give Uchiha Sasuke more powerful power. Chapter 583. The powerful Susanoo didn't last long. It only lasted for 3 or 4 minutes. Originally, the reason why Uchiha Sasuke used Susanoo at this time was actually to test the power of his new eyes. After all, Susanoo itself is an organic fusion of the power of 2 Manjikyu Sharingan. As long as he can figure out how much the power of Susanoo has increased, the remaining power of Dojutsu will be more or less clear. Now that he has figured it out, naturally, there's no need to continue to maintain such power. After all, this place belongs to Nangongja's Blood Cloak Pavilion, and a relationship between him and Sasuke is very good. There's really no need to show his muscles like this. After removing his Susanoo, Sasuke didn't come out of the room alone. Instead, he helped a person with gauze wrapped around his eyes out of the room. This person with gauze wrapped around his eyes is naturally the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke's biological father, Uchiha Fugaku. Uchiha Fugaku gave his eyes to his child Sasuke, and he himself transplanted a pair of ordinary eyes with the help of Blood Cloak Pavilion. Compared to Sharingan, ordinary eyes are not so adaptable, so now Uchiha Fugaku's transplanted eyes have not recovered well, and it will take some time to adapt. Nangong-sensei, helping Fugaku to walk in front of Nangongja, Sasuke bowed to Fugaku. Fugaku, who was supported by Sasuke to Nangongja, was more respectful than Sasuke. Although his eyes can't be used, as a powerful ninja, Fugaku can easily perceive Nangongja's position and directly bowed to Nangongja and said, "Greetings, Your Excellency." Nangongja didn't hesitate when he saw Fugaku bowing to him. He strode to Fugaku's front and used his hand to support Fugaku's arm. Nangongja then said to Fugaku with a bit of shame and admiration, "Brother Fugaku, Brother Fugaku, Brother Fugaku. You don't have to be so polite, Mr. Fugaku. I should be the one bowing to you. This time, the Blood Garment Pavilion let your family down and made you make such a big sacrifice. This is what the Blood Garment Pavilion and I owe you. This is not something that can be erased with a few words of thanks. No matter what, our Blood Garment Pavilion will maintain the closest relationship with Sir Fugaku's family." Fugaku had always said that he wasn't looking forward to the revival of his family. He had even stayed in the Lion Clan space like a hermit all these years to accompany his family. But Nangongja knew that in Fugaku's heart, he still had the idea of reviving the Uchiha clan again. The bloodline of the Uchiha clan is very overbearing. Even if there is only a part of the Uchiha clan's bloodline, it is very likely to invade other bloodlines outside the Uchiha clan. Moreover, this kind of overbearing bloodline will continue to increase with the strength of the people who carry the bloodline of the Uchiha clan. As long as the Uchiha clan can once again stand firm in the shinobi world, it will not be difficult for them to spread their bloodline and revive the family. And after experiencing such a situation of the destruction of the Uchiha clan, the arrogance of the people who have always been in the Uchiha clan will certainly be reduced a lot. At least, it will not be as obvious and inflexible as it was in the Woodleaf village. And all of this needs to rely on the Blood Robe Pavilion, or rather, the Blood Robe Pavilion that is really standing firm in the shinobi world. So what Nangongjia said now is actually a promise to Uchiha Fugaku. Since you can do so much for the Blood Robe Pavilion, then the Blood Robe Pavilion will naturally not treat you badly, even if you have done so much for your son. Thank you, Sama. This time, Fugaku finally didn't hide his inner feelings. He didn't say that he had already seen through the affairs of the world and wasn't willing to step into the mortal world anymore. Instead, he directly thanked Nangongjia. Nodding to Fugaku, Nangongjia then looked at Uchiha Sasuke, who was standing beside him. At this moment, Sasuke's eyes still maintained his eternal Mangekyo form, which was different from the previous appearance of Hexagram. Whether it was Fugaku's pinwheel or Sasuke's hexagram, they both appeared in Sasuke's eyes after a certain degree of deformation and overlap. Nangongjia's spiritual strength is very strong. Even if he directly looked at the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan like this, he didn't suffer too much from it. On the contrary, Sasuke was very surprised that Nangongjia could be completely unaffected by his eyes. After all, his eyes can be said to be the ultimate evolution of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Even when he looked at Nangongjia just now, Sasuke quietly used the Charm Eye ability of the Sharingan itself. But even so, Nangongjia's eyes were still clear at this moment. The stronger he is, the more he can't see through this man. This was the case in the past, and it's the same now. Even if he has always maintained a growth rate that ordinary people can't reach, and has also obtained various opportunities, but Nangongjia is still the same as when he was a child, steadily leaving him behind. Sasuke, this time it's hard for you. Nangongjia pressed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, looking at the child who he almost watched grow up with a little apologetically. I'm sorry, as an adult, I put such a heavy burden on you. But don't worry, I will face the wind and waves after with you. Although the ninja world is a pool of water in front of us, even so, as long as we are willing, we can take the long sword in our hands and open up a new world with the hot blood in our chests. At this moment, Nangongjia's eyes were burning with a raging flame. Nangongjia believes that he can make this ninja world a little different. A ninja world that only has ninjas is too monotonous. With one hand tightly holding the sword in his hand, Nangongjia stretched out his other hand and grabbed Sasuke's palm. With this, he took Sasuke step by step towards the central square of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, where all the forces of the Blood Cloak Pavilion that were about to participate in the war were waiting. Chapter 584. Holding Sasuke's hand, Nangongjia walked step by step to the front of the many Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples. Unlike last time, there was no high platform in the central square this time. Without the high and mighty distance, Nangongjia was not so unreachable for the Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples at this moment. Instead, he was much closer to them. Many disciples involuntarily began to kneel when they saw Nangongjia walking over. After all, Nangongjia was the supreme leader of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. When they saw their supreme leader, many people were actually in awe and reverence. Although the elite disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion were quite strong, they were far inferior to Nangongjia. He released his hand that was originally holding the Catastrophe Sword, opened his palm, and raised it toward the sky and the void. The few Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples who were about to kneel were immediately wrapped up by Nangongjia's internal strength, and their bodies involuntarily stood up straight. With a smile, Nangongja looked at the blood-cloaked pavilion disciples who were about to kneel because of the awe in their hearts. He did not say anything. Instead, he used his internal strength to amplify his voice so that it could be heard by all the disciples in the square. Disciples of the blood-cloak pavilion. No, it should be brothers and sisters. I am Nangongja, your chief, Nangongja. Nangongja's voice, which was amplified by his internal strength, became extremely deep and melodious. It was as if it rushed straight into everyone's ears and even into their minds. The people of the Bloodcloak Pavilion had a certain level of worship for Nangongja. When they could clearly hear Nangongja's words, they all cheered. Chief! 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 Listening to the passionate cheers of the Bloodcloak Pavilion disciples, Nangongja did not release his domain, which was beyond common sense, to suppress the voices of these disciples like before. Instead, he allowed them to shout his name loudly. The voices of 10 people were enough to shock people. The voices of 100 people were enough to scare people away, and the voices of 1,000 people were enough to scatter the clouds in the sky. When nearly 1,000 people in the square shouted loudly, it was unknown whether it was an illusion or not, but the floating clouds in the sky seemed to have become thinner. Finally, after a few minutes, the disciples of the Bloodcloak Pavilion completely expressed their feelings through shouting, and the huge square finally regained some peace. When Nangongja saw that everyone had finished expressing their emotions, he stood in the crowd and said, I know that many of you admire and even fear me. Fear! After all, anyone with strength in this world is worthy of respect. This is the truest and most irrefutable truth in this world. Such an idea has almost become the truth recognized by everyone, but I don't think such a so-called truth is right. When a world only has respect for the strong, but has lost sympathy for the weak, such a world is a deformed world. And isn't the current ninja world such a world? Strong ninja villages bully weak ninja villages. Strong countries exploit weak countries. Strong ninjas bully weak civilians, countries, ninja villages. Ninjas, out of their own selfish interests, don't care about the life and death of the weak. In recent decades, 3 shinobi world wars have broken out, and now the 4th shinobi world war is about to break out. Although the current strength of our Bloodcloak Pavilion is not bad, after all, we are just an organization in the ninja world. Even in terms of strength and heritage, we are much worse than the 5 great ninja villages that have always occupied the leading position in the ninja world. But we are different from these ninjas who only know how to deceive. We internal strength cultivators pay attention to righteousness. Since we want to fight, we will fight fair and square. Since we want to fight, we have to fight openly. Since we want to change the world, we have to use the strongest posture to let everyone see our attitude. This time, our action is risky. Even I don't know how successful our action is. But I'm not afraid, and I believe that you are not afraid either. For the current world, we have squeezed too much dissatisfaction. Since we are dissatisfied, we have to let others know how powerful our dissatisfaction is. In this battle, I will stand in front of each of you. If we really want to shed blood, then let me shed blood first. If we want to leave scars on our bodies, then let me get hurt first. If we really want to risk our lives, then let me sacrifice my life first. Letting go of Sasuke's hand, Nangongja began to take a step forward with every sentence. When Nangongja said this, Nangongja was actually standing in the center of the square. He slowly pulled out the Heavenly Calamity Sword in his hand, and a sharp sword light was released from the Heavenly Calamity Sword. Gradually, the sword light condensed into sword chi, and the black Heavenly Calamity Sword seemed to shine brightly under the contrast of the sword chi. In this battle, my Bloodcloak Pavilion may not be able to win the final victory. But I can tell you this. Our Bloodcloak Pavilion will definitely become the most dazzling existence in the 4th Shinobi World War, an existence that no one can ignore. Compared to chakra, internal strength is indeed a little bit lacking, but as long as we can show our strength in the 4th Shinobi World War, it is equivalent to planting the most vigorous seed for the development of internal strength. We are not fighting for the resentment of the past, not for the status of the present. We are fighting for the future that we look forward to. There is nothing more fascinating than the future, because the future represents hope and all kinds of possibilities. As long as you are dissatisfied with the reality, then you will definitely yearn for the future. For the future, fight bloody battles. For the future, fight bloody battles. Nangong's words were very true and not so impassioned. Just like that, he directly told everyone about the dangers of this battle and also told everyone about the possible sacrifices they might have to make. It was precisely because it was true that it was more convincing. Everyone saw the danger, but at the same time, they also saw the hope in the danger. Chapter 585. When the 5 great shinobi villages and the Blood Cloak Pavilion were in full swing, they didn't know when the war would break out, but the leader of Akatsuki, Uchiha Obito, along with Kabuto and Black Zetsu, appeared outside the rain country. Towering stone peaks, pure white and fluffy clouds. All of this is very different from the natural environment of the rain country. It only belongs to one country in the shinobi world, the Lightning Country. After making up their mind not to confront the 5 great shinobi villages, Uchiha Obito and Black Zetsu have been discussing which place to attack first. After all, Akatsuki is different from the 5 great shinobi villages. After all, the allied shinobi forces formed by the 5 great shinobi villages don't belong to the same force, and when they carry out personnel transfer, it will cause a lot of movement. As long as Akatsuki wants to investigate, they can completely know the actions of the 5 great shinobi villages. Akatsuki itself is an organization hidden in the dark. As long as it can be carried out without being seen by others, Akatsuki will not put such actions on the surface. Now, the main forces of the Akatsuki against the allied forces of the 5 great ninja villages are 100,000 white Zetsu clones and 100,000 Edo Tensei clones. These 2 clones are very good at hiding their whereabouts and can directly integrate into the earth and trees. And the Edo Tensei itself is almost a psychic existence. As long as a short preparation time, they can directly start the battle. There are many targets that Akatsuki can attack. For example, the Land of Iron, which has lost its leader, and the Land of Wind, Sunagakure, which is relatively weak among the 5 great shinobi villages. These 2 targets can actually be regarded as the most suitable choice. To be able to create the greatest value with the least cost can be regarded as very cost-effective. But at this moment, Uchiha Obito still looked at the Land of Lightning Kumo Shinobu, which is not weak among the 5 great shinobi villages. In fact, Obito also has his own thoughts about biting off such a hard bone first. The moment Kisame died, the seal that symbolized his life left in Akatsuki directly collapsed. But because of the seal created with the power of 6 paths, Uchiha Obito obtained the fragmented and partial memories of Kisame. Although the memory was intermittent, it clearly revealed a piece of information. 9 Tails Column Force, Vortex Naruto, and 8 Tails Column Force, Killer Bee, are currently in Kumo Shinobu Village in the Lightning Country. Uchiha Obito's biggest goal was not to defeat the allied ninja army composed of the 5 great ninja villages, but to collect the power of the Hachibi and 9 Tails that he hasn't obtained yet, to resurrect the Jubi and make himself the column force of the Jubi. With the help of the Jubi's huge power, he projected the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan onto the moon, making the whole world fall into the infinite Tsukuyomi. Since his biggest goal was the Lightning Country, why didn't he come here? Taking a step back, even if there's a mistake in the memory fragment of Kisame, and Vortex Naruto is not in Kumo Shinobu Village at the moment, once he really occupies Kumo Shinobu Village, then he can use the whole Kumo Shinobu Village as bait to lure the Hachibi Column Force. And even 9 Tails Column Force and Vortex Naruto may also jump into the trap with him. With Killer Bee and Vortex Naruto's reckless and impulsive behavior, Uchiha Obito, who has deliberately studied these two people, is at least 70% sure that he can make these two impulsive column 4s come to him, and he can easily defeat them with the power of Geto Mazo. Moreover, although the resources of the Lightning Country are not very outstanding among the 5 major countries, but the Lightning Country has the most dangerous terrain among the 5 major countries. Although it is nothing for the Akatsuki's army of 100,000 white Zetsu, but for the ninjas of the allied ninja army of the 5 major countries, such an environment has a great restrictive ability. He could advance to attack, retreat to defend, a natural stronghold spirit. Are you ready? Obito turned his head and slowly looked at Black Zetsu and Kabuto standing on both sides behind him. Black Zetsu controls the army of 100,000 white Zetsu, and Kabuto controls the army of Edo Tensei. One has the advantage in numbers, and the other has the advantage in individual strength. What's more, Kabuto and Black Zetsu don't like each other, and a certain degree of jealousy between their subordinates is actually a good way to improve the combat power of the forces. Only through competition would a person be able to unleash a greater power. When Black Zetsu heard Obito's question, he didn't say anything, but nodded his head. Apparently, he was ready to attack. Kabuto, who was standing on the other side, showed a completely different kind of activity from Black Zetsu. His eyes flashed with a bit of eagerness. Sama, I have prepared a big gift for the 4th Reikage of Kyumo, Shinobu Village. I believe that he will be very surprised when the time comes. Looking at Kabuto's sly expression, Uchiha Obito knew that Kabuto must be planning something. But what's the matter? After all, it's his enemy who will suffer, and the more his enemy suffers, the happier he will be. Very good. After taking a deep look at Black Zetsu and Kabuto, Obito's eyes, which are composed of 3 Tomo Sharingan and Rinnegan behind the mask, flashed with a glimmer of light. His dream is about to be achieved. At this moment, Uchiha Obito couldn't help but feel a little excited, but no matter how excited he was, Obito forced himself to suppress his emotions, forcing himself to be rational and calm down. Black Zetsu now controlled the White Zetsu army to sneak into Kyumo, Shinobu Village. After the transformation, the 100,000 White Zetsu army began to disperse into Kyumo, Shinobu Village, using Spore technique to control the civilians and ninjas of Kyumo, Shinobu Village. I'll give you 6 hours. Report to me after you're done. In order to form his ideal Tsukuyumi world, he feels that he can't kill unscrupulously. Every ninja and civilian with independent will is an important material for Tsukuyumi world. The more such material is integrated into Tsukuyumi world, the more real and fuller Tsukuyumi world can become. Obito doesn't want his Rin to live in such an incomplete world, and by extracting any memories of Rin in the mind of the material, it is equivalent to recreating Rin's soul. What Obito wants is not only for Rin to appear in front of him again. What Obito wanted was to appear in front of him, the living, sometimes unruly, sometimes gentle Harano Rin that he deeply loved. Chapter 586. The Ninja Village is a violent organization, no matter how much so-called justice is used to modify their behavior. In the end, the Ninja Village is a mercenary organization that accepts money, threats, and even directly takes the lives of those who stand on their opposite side. Kyumo Shinobu Village is one of the 5 great ninja villages, although its strength surpasses the general ninja village. In essence, Kyumo Shinobu Village is also such an organization. At this moment, it's midnight when everyone is sleepy. Even the ninja of Kyumo Shinobu Village who has received complete ninja training. Although he is strong, his body is still instinctively full of fatigue. Standing on the temporary watchtower that was built because of the upcoming war, a ninja of the Cloud Village looked at the dark space in front of him and almost couldn't help but yawn, and with the yawn, his eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist because of tiredness. This ninja of the Cloud Village has just been promoted to Chunin. This year, he just led an ordinary ninja team. Because of his strength and the qualifications of his students, This team has been performing some C-level and even D-level tasks since its establishment. It's already late at night, and his 3 students can't bear the fatigue of their bodies and doze off a little at the foot of the watchtower. And this Chunin himself is a very gentle and even slightly timid person. When he saw his students dozing off during the task, he didn't even lose his temper. This group of kids is really lazy. Today's task is really a bit hard. Next time I must teach these kids how to be a qualified ninja. Although there seems to be a bit of blame in his words, the eyes of this Chunin are extremely soft. It seems that there's a story behind it. Just when this Chunin was still looking at his team of young children, a familiar and strange smell passed to his nose. The slightly sweet and fishy smell was so pungent and fresh. This smell was very familiar to the Chunin because this smell was the smell of blood. It was the smell of fresh blood that just flowed out of a human body. Not good. Perceiving that things are not good, the Chunin immediately walked towards his 3 students, ready to wake them up and then ring the alarm bell on the watchtower. But when he was only a few centimeters away from his students, a white figure suddenly rushed out from the floor of the watchtower. The floor of the watchtower is not made of mud, but wood. What kind of escape technique can make people integrate into such a material? The Chunin doesn't know, and at this moment, he doesn't have time to figure out what is going on. The white figure directly pressed his palm on Kumo Chunin's neck at a speed that Kumo Chunin couldn't keep up with. Feeling a chill invading his neck, Kumo Chunin could only lose his strength and fell to the ground softly. The last thing the Chunin saw was a naked white figure with a strange face slowly walking towards his 3 disciples. Kumo Chunin wanted to move his body so that he could stand in front of his disciples to protect these young children. But he can't move at all, and the Chunin can clearly feel that the part of his neck that was just touched by this white figure has begun to take root and germinate at this moment. Finally, although the Chunin of the cloud used all kinds of methods to keep his mind awake, it was still inevitable that he fell into a deep sleep. What happened here is not an exception. It happened in every corner of the Kumo Shinobu village. The defensive forces of the Cloud Village are getting thinner and thinner under the layers of white Zetsu. After the outer defense circle was nibbled away, the white Zetsu troops also encountered the weakest and densest part of the Cloud Village, the civilian area. Like harvesting, the civilians and ninjas of the Cloud Village lost their fighting ability and even consciousness under the sudden attack of the white Zetsu. Many Jonins were even defeated by the attack of the white Zetsu clone, whose strength was greatly enhanced. Although this kind of fighting method is very effective, it is not a long-term solution. After all, the Cloud Village is one of the 5 great ninja villages of the ninja world. It is impossible for the Cloud Village to be completely wiped out. Even the reason why the Cloud Village hasn't reacted yet is because the white Zetsu didn't kill them, so there wasn't too much bloody smell. If the white Zetsu didn't use Spore Jutsu to control the Cloud Village and directly killed them, they would have been discovered by the Cloud Village's powerhouses. But even if they didn't kill anyone, the Cloud Village is still strong. How dare you? Who dares to ignore the majesty of the Cloud Village and invade our ninja village? The rough and majestic voice of the 4th Raikage spread directly in all directions, and his figure quickly appeared on the roof of the Raikage building in the Cloud Village. The right Unchakra turned into chakra armor and attached to the body of the Raikage. At this moment, the Raikage was like the god of thunder, full of majesty that ordinary people can't reach. It seems that the Raikage's voice alarmed the people in the Cloud Village who originally turned off their lights, lit their candles, and the originally quiet Cloud Village became brightly lit. The reason why the white Zetsu army could create such a rare result before was mainly because of his magical jutsu and transformation jutsu. But now, under the watchful eyes of so many people, even if his transformation jutsu and escape jutsu are magical, what can he do? The 100,000 white Zetsu army immediately began to retreat when they realized that they had been exposed, and Black Zetsu, who was standing beside Uchiha Bido, also immediately reported to Abido. Under the attack of the white Zetsu army, At least one-third of the ninjas and at least two-thirds of the civilians in the Kyumo Shinobu village have been controlled. When Obito heard the results of the White Zetsu army, his eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. Obito didn't expect to directly attack the Cloud Village with only the White Zetsu army. Now that the Cloud Village's combat power has been reduced by one-third with almost no loss on his side, it can be regarded as a remarkable result. Chapter 587. Very good. Hearing Black Zetsu's report, Uchiha Obito looked at Kabuto, who was standing behind him. Now it's your turn to play. Are you ready? Hearing Obito's question, Yakushi's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. His slightly retro glasses also reflected a ray of light. Of course, I believe that the Cloud Village will like this gift. I prepared for them very much. Kabuto made 4 hand seals one after another, and the chakra on Kabuto's body also surged quickly with the hand seals. When he felt that his chakra had condensed to a certain point, Kabuto put his palms together, squatted down, and pressed his palms on the ground. Boom! With the explosion of smoke, black runes spread out from Kabuto's palms. The runes seemed to have a life of their own and condensed into 3 formations on the ground. And at the moment when the formations were formed, 3 coffins slowly floated from the ground. In the middle of the coffins, there were characters that represented the identity of the reincarnated person: gold, silver, and lightning. Before Kabuto joined the Akatsuki, he had been using his Sage Mode body to sneak into various huge ninja villages to steal the DNA samples of the strong people who had passed away. The Cloud Village has always been outstanding in the ninja world, so naturally, there was no way to avoid the presence of Kabuto. Kabuto also obtained 3 DNA samples from the Cloud Village that he was very satisfied with. The strongest contradiction of the Cloud Village, the 2 lights of the Cloud Village. The 3 people who left their own thick ink in the history of the Cloud Village. Now is the time for you to open your eyes again. As Kabuto's voice fell, the lids of the 3 coffins were opened one after another, revealing the 3 strong people hidden in them: Cloud Ninja Ginkaku, Cloud Ninja Ginkaku, and Cloud Ninja Sandame Reikage AI. Oh, this is really the fresh air I haven't breathed in for a long time. Unlike the yellow spring, the air here is so sweet. Ginkaku was the first to recover his consciousness. He stepped out of the coffin and took a deep breath of the air with greed and fascination. With a cruel smile on his face, he said, "Such a wonderful thing. I can't help but want to destroy it all." Shaking his slightly dark golden hair, Ginkaku's face, which was very similar to Naruto's, was full of dangerous aura. Haha, Big Brother is right. The more beautiful something is, the more wonderful it is to destroy it. Behind Ginkaku, a voice that was very similar to Ginkaku's voice sounded. However, unlike Goldhorn's voice, which was filled with violence, Silverhorn's voice sounded more sinister and cunning. At this moment, Ginkaku and Ginkaku stood together very tacitly, searching for the remnant of chakra in their bodies that was used to awaken them. Both of them turned their eyes to Kabuto, who was standing on the side with his whole body covered in a loose robe. "Are you the one who summoned us from the Yellow Springs?" Ginkaku looked at Kabuto with a bit of fierceness in his eyes, as if he didn't like the person who brought him back to the world. Ginkaku were rebellious people. When they were alive, they even rebelled because they were dissatisfied with the end of the war in the Thunder and Fire Alliance. Although the rebellion was quelled, the Woodleaf Village's second Hokage and Cloud Village's second Hokage were seriously injured because of them. It could be said that the rebellion of Ginkaku and Ginkaku brought the curtain to the end of the 2 eras of Cloud Village and Woodleaf Village. The second Reikage AI, the founder of the Cloud Village in its heyday, and the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama of Konoha, were defeated by him at the same time. No matter what kind of method was used, Jinjiao and Yinjiao were not simple people. And the more troublesome they were, the more they didn't want to be controlled by others. The 2 of them were able to be swallowed by the 9-tailed beast, but they were able to forcefully cause the nine-tailed beast to spit them out. Naturally, it was not difficult to imagine how difficult and unruly these two people were. Kabuto looked at Ginkaku and Ginkaku, who were staring at him, and felt the obvious murderous intent from them. In fact, he couldn't help but feel nervous. After all, in terms of fighting ability, he was indeed not as strong as Ginkaku and Ginkaku, who had been in the ninja world for many years. But Uchiha, Obito, and Black Zetsu, who were standing next to him, didn't seem to want to make a move at all. It seemed that they wanted to see how he was going to solve this problem. Although he was not as strong as Ginkaku and Ginkaku in terms of strength, their lives were in his hands. Suddenly, Kabuto formed a seal in his hands, and the chakra sealed in Ginkaku and Ginkaku's bodies by Kabuto was activated. He directly transferred his chakra to the key nodes in the Edo Tensei's body, and almost instantly, Ginkaku and Ginkaku's bodies were stopped. "You bastard!" Seeing that his body was suddenly unable to move, Ginkaku immediately glared at Kabuto, and even his body was trembling slightly because of the struggle. Ginkaku, who was standing next to Ginkaku, didn't look so excited, but the burning anger in his eyes was still so obvious. "Don't worry, you two. I didn't summon you two to become emotionless tools. Otherwise, I would have already controlled your consciousness." Kabuto walked slowly toward the direction where Ginkaku and Ginkaku were controlled. He came to Ginkaku's side and gently put his hand on his shoulder. A large amount of chakra poured into Ginkaku's body, supplying the chakra that was controlling him. Ginkaku's body, which was still trembling slightly, had completely stabilized at this moment. You two may not know this, but the ninja world now is different from the ninja world of your time. A ninja war that is far beyond the 5 major powers is happening. I know the personalities of the two of you very well. War, bloodshed, killing, and destruction are the things that the two of you love the most. Now, I'm giving you a chance to fully release your instincts. That you're tuning in to the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.